Based on the comments I get, and I see, I believe I have a lot of new subscribers. I just wanted to go over some of the videos, that I have uh, created before and uploaded. All right. So when you go to my homepage, you see the popular uploads right away. All right. So you can go ahead and check those out. The main one right here is part six of a series I have called Untold Ancient American Truth, Maya Civilizers. All right, and it says Egypt in America, Augustus Liplojon. All right, let's just get a little bit about of it real quick. It's not just like we're similar to Egyptians or we're similar to the Hindu or all that. It's everything because this is the source. So from here, it's spread out to the rest of the world. All right, so let's see what they say right here. All right, so I'm just gonna belly flop to this part of the article, and it says, after correlating all data that have been made public to the present time. All right, the conclusion is unavoidable that the oldest civilization was in the Yucatan and Central America. All right, Again, the Kansas City Journal in 1896 wrote this. They're telling you that if you really do the research and you start compiling all this information, all this evidence, it's unavoidable. All right, that the oldest civilization was in the Yucatan and Central America. Future discoveries may change this conclusion. It seems that Egypt was first peopled by immigrants from the Yucatan. What? Say what? It seems that Egypt was first peopled by the immigrants from Yucatan. Space will allow only a few facts. All right, so that's part six of that series. Go get that if you haven't seen it. Go get actually all the way from part one. All right, so again, that's one of the popular ones, but let me just go to my video playlist. Just want to go ahead and describe a little bit of the videos I got here because I see a lot of people might not have gone over the information or have forgotten. But I start out, I didn't know when I was starting. I was just uploading things, but usually when I started going, it's around 2 years ago. I started out with a series to try to explain how to understand, that they're definitely hiding something up there, whatever the shape, they're definitely hiding something. Gotta know who created NASA, all right, and what's the involvement with Nazi and Hollywood producers, So just looking at it from a different angle, and then we got I got my Hebrew series. This is one of my popular videos. Hebrew Aboriginal Copper Colored Tribes of America, and basically, if you see it, you'll understand what I'm trying to show. It's not that we're talking about religions or anything like that. We're just talking about that you are the book. That these ceremonies, these traditions, these things that they describe the Israelites or the Hebrews doing, that was all happening over here. All these biblical stories and everything, they took those from our codices, from our oral stories, from books like the Popol Vuh. The Popol Vuh has the same exact creation as Genesis. All right, so that's what I mentioned in this book a little bit, in this video a little bit. All right, and so we show a lot of correlation with the stories of the American indigenous people, aboriginals, like the Kachikels, talking about that their priest king led them, and that he had a staff that they were called the red stick, that which he had, which is the name of the Kachikels, which means red stick, and in Quiche, right, and Kachikel, and that he put the staff in the sand and he separated the waters, just like the story of Moses. All right, so we do a lot of correlation. We're not just talking about reading from Bibles or anything like that. All right, Moses in America. Did you know Deuteronomy 34? You can find all those places in Utah, exactly the exact same way it's described in that verse. Valleys, mountains, everything is right there. All right. Much love to everybody who brought this knowledge to us, before me. All right, then we got my City of David in Peru video. All right, if you don't know about Sacsayhuaman, all right, and the significance of Cusco. All right, Cusco is means navel or belly button or center of the earth, middle of the earth, center, the center. That's what Cusco means. All right, in their language, their local language. All right, and so we're talking about that, Sacsayhuaman is a fortress there. They have these megalithic stones, you know, and what is the correlation with the city of David, right? The biblical city of David and Sacsayhuaman. We're trying to put history and Bible together because we know that a lot of the stuff in the Bible is history. It's whether it's put in allegorically or plagiarized in a certain way, names change and all that, but we're talking about that this all occurred here in the Americas, all right? Then I got two top videos, all right? Hey, this is for those who like to go beyond, and this is really interesting research, that I enjoy actually doing. And shout out to 42 the Drop Radio Con Drop. He has like a whole continuation of this whole research, like it's just like we think, and it's like he got part 3, 4, 5, and 6, and it's just like go get his drop on Merculius, all right, the stoning of Merculius and all that, the 3-part series, all right, regarding religions and Islam and all that, in ancient worship of these deities such as Baal, Moloch, Shemosh, all right, and this is historical. Like this stuff, it's written not just in the Bible, all right. So, who's the hijack? Who's the dog? What do you mean about trickster? Thoth is Hermes, Mercury, same people. You got to read into those 3 characters and understand and overstand. And Thoth, remember, he said he's from Atlantis and the Emerald Tablets. So Atlantis is over here. This basically America, all right. The greeny beast, which is the head of Thoth, the greeny beast, you only find in Central America, all right. So he's also Hermanubis or Hermes Anubis. Nubis the dog, the jackal. You spell God backwards as DOG, right? So that's their god, that's their jackal, all right. The coyote, the trickster, swiper no swiping, all right. So it's deep investigation. You like we get into that. Now we got my other video, which is 4 parts, I believe. Yeah, 4 parts of the corn research I did on corn. All right, so this part 1, the true history of corn, maize in the old world. They used to call maize or corn Turkish wheat in Europe. All right, that's why there was a distinction between Indian corn and Turkish wheat. All right, and they're definitely referring to the one over here in America as Indian, before Columbus came over here, and the one that was in Europe from ancient times, which was Turkish wheat, because it came in through the other side of the world, or through Asia or to Turkey. All right, and it's all over the hieroglyphics, all over the old world corn. This is a very good researched video right here regarding corn. Then we got part 2 of it. We got maize all over the hands of these deities in India. Right, it's like it's not a doubt. This ain't an acorn. This ain't they made up so many stories, but this is maize. All right, you understand that maize was specific and it was original to America from the teosinte plant. All right, and that this there's proof, at least from what they let us know, that they can trace it back 10,000 years where it was biologically engineered and made into maize, and from the teosinte plant, all right, in Mesoamerica. And somehow this got into Asia in ancient times. Of course, it was all connected, right? Or we made trade, but it was exclusive to a certain people, because corn is it doesn't grow in the wild. You can't just drop it and just grow. No, it doesn't. It needs our help to grow. Imagine. So it was a specific people who had it. Nobody else had it because it didn't grow in the wild. So when they were bringing it, they were saying, yo, these gods, right? They were giving us corn. And all over the world, they talk about that the gods gave them the corn, or God gave them corn, imperial wheat. It was for the gods. It was from the gods, the manna, right? Maize, masa, all right? So you can see gods here holding the corn in India, all right? And a lot of the most renowned agriculturists, majors in agriculture, with their PhDs and everything, they went over there. They said it's undoubtedly corn. It's undoubtedly different types of corn too. They were able to compare with Peruvian corn, with North American corn, Mesoamerican corn. They had different types. They were able to do that. So go look at the research on that. And then we got part 3, the whole mystery behind it. From how it went from teosinte to corn. How it's all over the old world and Peru and everything. They had it. There's fossilized corn and everything. It's really ancient. All right. So it says here that this is called the mysterious origins of maize in prehistory, cradle of civilization. So if we are able to follow corn, we're able to see who really started civilizations because it was based on agriculture. The first civilizations, it wasn't because of anything else other than agriculture that they were able to create civilizations because they were able to settle down from being nomads or whatever, traveling migrants or just on the move, hunters gatherers, so that when they were able to settle down, they had time to do other things, art, science, all that other stuff. And corn was much helped in doing that, and that's what went around the world and helping other civilizations get civilized. That's why you see God's holding corn all the time, you know, Babylon and everything. Then part four, corn in the Bible, corn in ancient mythology. All right, it's all over the place. It's all over the Torah, corn. All right, all right. That's what I'm saying. If there's real history in all this, all right. And then of course we got my series, which is one of my, you know, I hope everybody, you know, takes the time to watch. It's my series. It's called From Indigenous American to African American. This is part one right here. You see my most viewed video, and we talk about in this particular video about, you know, the oldest bones that they found here. You know, anthropology and a lot of references from primary sources describing, you know, the different indigenous people of the Americas, and a lot of times they're talking about black nations, right? So-called Negro nations, all right? Just this part of the video, actually, we're talking about ODB. He's a Shinnecock Indian.
My great grandfather was an Indian chief, Shinnecock, from the Shinnecock Reservation in Long Island, Riverhead. So that's where my mother met my father in Long Island. Dirty just carried his heritage to the limit. You know, we're Indians. I say, and then he used to say, yeah, we Indians, we sold Manhattan. I said, well, listen, they sold Manhattan for trinkets. So you always said, well, we're going to try to get it back. I said, Rusty, please. You're not getting it back, so forget it.
The Indian, the soul Manhattan to the white man, my
Remember
grandfather.
grandfather. All right, the Indians, they sold Manhattan to the whites. Remember grandfather? That's his grandfather. All right, and we're gonna get into his grandfather in this video. All right, we're gonna show a picture of him. You know, it's the same one they show in this video. All right, and again, that's part one. You know, again, if you haven't taken the time to go back in these videos, you know, this is from, let's say, 2018. All right, so this is almost 2 years old. From Indigenous American to African American. Make sure to catch the 20-part series. All right, I just want to show you the different parts. All right, so we got part two. All right, and we're talking about the Black Californians, Mexicans, and Central Americans. We got different descriptions of them all over. Make sure to catch it. We got part three. All right, which is we talk about Aztec slaves in Jamaica. We're talking about the Sigua. They went all the way to Costa Rica, these Aztecs, right? We're talking about the real Mexica people, Aboriginal people that came down. They were prospecting for gold. They would bring up, right? They would bring up, you know, Moctezuma and all the other kings. They would come down to these regions. They knew it was full of gold. And so these same people will be called the Sigua over here in Costa Rica. And these people were getting enslaved by the English with the help of the Mosquito. And then we talk about a lot about the Pequots here, right? The Pequots, how they end up in Providence Island and Nicaragua. Yeah, Pequots in Nicaragua, you know. So these are the same people they're calling Negro today, or Sambos, or mixed with slaves, but these are Pequots. All right, make sure to get that. I put let me see, I put Elephant Man right in the cover, as you can see, because like I said, they took Aztecs from Costa Rica to Jamaica in the 1600s. All right, so that was part three. All right, we got part four, very good one too. We go deep, we go, you know, very ancient. We're talking about the antediluvian aborigines of America. We're talking about you're very ancient, going to Atlantis. All right, we're talking about the oldest Y chromosome DNA over here. We're talking about the true old world. We're talking about this being the true Egypt and all that. So, you know, we're still talking about you always when we're talking about pharaohs and everything. So that was all over here. And again, we're talking about that Egypt was over here and it's part of the Bible story. That's my whole point. We're talking about the same thing. This is real history. This all happened here. All right. And then I got my other video here, Columbus and his Negro friends, Marranos, Moors, Black Conquistadors, Canaanite, Moabite. All right, what is that all about? I'll let you go watch that. It's very deep. If you can understand, this is way before. This is a year ago, right? So we were just trying to be historic. There is, did you know that a lot of those Spaniards were actually what you would consider Negroes? They were black people. They were Iberians. Portugal and Spain was Iberia. And these were all, most of them were all, what you would say a Moor or a dark skin complexion. And so this is like a Moor on Moor war, right? They were coming here and helping, conquer other aboriginals, other Moors, right? Other dark complexion people. All right, whatever you want to use it as, but there's a real history here. It's not just about the white man or pale-faced people. It's deeper than that. And if you like, to see, go ahead and take a look at this video. I did a Black Panther, Wakanda in America. All right, Waka, Spirit Water, Jaguar Warrior. All right, because where did they get the idea for marble? Where did they get the idea for marble? That was all from here. That was all from here. All right, and associated themselves with their god of night. All right, so see how important this jaguar god is, and they even dress like him, right? Just like the Black Panther marble. And this is from the Aztec Codex called Mendoza, the Codex Mendoza. So this is something the Aztecs, taught the Spaniards when they arrived. The jaguar actually originated in North America. All right, so originally jaguars were in North America. All right, you hear that? Though now it only lives in Central and parts of South America. The jaguar moved south when Central America formed into a land bridge. Jaguars prefer habitats like jungles and swamps, but also like semi-arid mountainous regions, so long as the area is forested. The jaguar is also one of the few cats to like water, and often can be seen playing in it. Alright, so that's the jaguar. Now this video here is really, really deep. We're talking about the Wakanda. Wakanda, that is an American Indian word. The creator, alright, the great spirit, Wakantanka. Alright, Waka. In Peru we have sacred places called Wakas. Waka, or W-A-K-A, like Waka Flocka. Alright, Waka, same thing. Jaguar, alright, Jaguar Warrior or Black Panther. The thing is, you see, there is no such thing as Black Panthers. Panthers means big cats. So any big cat can be a panther, right? But when we're talking about melanated cats, they majorly exist in the Americas through the jaguars. They still have spots, but you can't see them because they have a black coat. But there's black jaguars. That's what I was just showing right here. See, there's black jaguars, right? That's a real Black Panther, what they call. So in Africa they have leopards, right? But there's a recessive over there. That melanated gene, it's dominant amongst jaguars. That means it originated here. And we're talking about people who dress up like jaguars. We're talking about jaguar warriors. That only happened here. All right, so we're talking about, look at this. This is from Guatemala right here. All right, this is a picture of Wakanda. All right, in the comic book. All right, so it's all over the place here. They mimic everything. They took all that from here. So this video gets really deep with that. I mean, I know you'll enjoy it if you watch it. All right, it gets really deep. Then we're talking about the Amazonian women. All right, the homie, nope, that wasn't the first. They were actually hunters, elephant hunters. The real Amazonians were way before that, and the Spanish record that they meeting Amazonian warrior women here when they got here in the 1500s. That the Dahomey from Africa are after that in the 1600s. And then when we're talking about Greeks, talking about the Amazonians, the legends of the Amazonian women, they're talking about the Americas, because the Greeks are always talking about Atlantis and all these the Western Ethiopians and the Hesperides. That was all over here. All right, so make sure to catch this video. The Black Panther video is really good. I got this other video called Anubis, found in America, the Sholot, god of the underworld. All right, so did you know America, the true old world? But I thought it deserved its own video. We actually found Anubis, the real Anubis, yeah, here in America. Yes, America. They flipped everything on us. There's many layers to the lies that we have to uncover, but we are doing it little by little. You gotta break the spell. Break the spell. Find your true orientation, your true perspective, foundational truth. Get that pure water, let it in, break the spell. Glad you're all here. Let's begin. Alright, so make sure to get that. Alright, the Xolotl or Xoloitzcuintli, alright? These dogs existed in Mexico since ancient times. They're hairless dogs. These are the ones they portray in all the Egyptian walls. All right, it's basically the Xolotl. This dog doesn't exist in Egypt. All right, this dog is from here. All right, from the Americas. All right, and dogs originated in the Americas. I got a video on that too. We're gonna get to that. All right, but you know the Anubis. You know they say it's a coyote, a jackal. He is a jackal, meaning the trickster, right? But this is the Xolotl dog that we're representing, all right? Because that was ancient Egypt, again, was over here. Ancient Egypt, again, was over here. There you go. That's Anubis right there. So the Peruvians had the same dog, and they was represented the same way as dogs in Egypt. The guys of the underworld, they would get buried with the kings over here, just like in Egypt. And in the underworld, Xolotl, the god, just like Anubis, was the transporter of souls to the underworld, the messenger in between, you know, everything. The god of the underworld, just like Anubis. Every trait Anubis has, Xolotl also has, because Xolotl is the real one. It's the real one. Remember, who's Anubis? It's Thoth, right? I just told you that before, right? Hermanubis. Hermes is Thoth. Hermanubis, Anubis, the dog, the trickster, the jackal, the dog-headed, Cynocephalus. Check out Kondrat's videos on that. It's deep. It gets really deep. All right, so the dog in the ancient world, right? And they're depicted in Egyptian hieroglyphics, the Xolotl that's originated here from America and Peru. I forget the name, but they had the same dog, but different name. All right, so they also had it, and also a guide to the underworld, just like Anubis. All right, so make sure to get that. Really good video. All right, and then we got part 5. All right, from indigenous American to African American. We're talking about the classifications they gave all your ancestors in these census. Right, we're talking about they gave you black, mulatto, colored. And we show census and we show all these different correlations showing you that, like for example, in these parts that we'll talk about, that they were calling people mulatto with no African ancestry. That was just because they were Indians, and they were trying to reclassify your ancestors. And we showed census with people's family being switched from mulatto to black, from white to black, from white to mulatto, from even white to black, or black to white. All right, in 10 years. So, you know, dodge the hijack. Again, very good video. Part 6, one of my more popular videos, same thing, you know. And Indians, aka free people of color. The free people of color, that's all you. That's the Indians, all right. You know, they just try to hijack all that. Again,
A color line there. And one place that I went to, it was a dance, and we went in there, and there was a Indian girl who was at the desk. And she said, "I'm sorry you can't come in because you're not white." And I said, "Oh, I know that. I'm Narragansett." And she said, "What's Narragansett?" And I said, "A Narragansett Indian from Rhode Island." And she said, "There is no such thing."
Throughout the 19th century, you get every few years a notice of the last full-blooded Narragansett has died. And the last Indian dies and dies and dies.
Africans and Native Americans, by Jack Forbes says here, it is clear from a decision of 1850 that persons of American descent, in order to escape from the status of mulatto or colored person, had to prove that they were of free Indian descent, unmixed with African blood. That's what that means. The case is as follows. Alright, so make sure to get that. That's a really good video. We go in. We showing census. Alright, we're showing real census from real people. The census of showing how they changed things. How he went from mulatto, black to Cherokee. Alright. Alright, these are the same people. Alright, how they cross it out. You see over here, Cherokee. Alright, go get that. That's Kiowa's family, I believe. Much love to Kiowa. Alright, so that's part 6. Alright, we got part 7, really good too. We're talking about Crispus Attucks, the Aboriginal American. Alright, Crispus Attucks, the martyr of the Revolutionary War. We also got interviews with Farrakhan. Alright, and look at his name. Aboriginals. Hold on.
I watched my wife. They put a blanket over her arm because she has Indian roots. Because she has Indian roots. Because she has Indian roots. And they danced. My wife had never danced. But there she was with the women
in the circle
of the Sioux Oglala Nation. And I watched my wife reach down in her roots, and you could not tell that she was not one of the Oglala Sioux women as she danced with them.
All right. So that was Farrakhan himself letting you know that his wife is an Indian. All right, not part, she is Sioux. All right, subliminally, even though he may be part or down with whatever in certain orders and all that. Hey, in this moment, he's letting you know. That's a good interview in this video. We go through a lot again in this video. Let me just put this part on. We got a documentary. Also of Negro. What does he mean by that? We're gonna go into it, right?
The classic example is someone like Crispus Attucks. Now, when he runs away from his master, he was an indentured servant and not a slave. When he runs away from his master in Framingham, Massachusetts.
All right, so Crispus Attucks, right? In history, they teach us that he was the first person to die in the American Revolutionary War, or he was the martyr, right? He was the first person killed because of the what they did in the Boston Harbor by dumping the tea, and then they blamed them, and then so they went after them, and then he got killed, whatever. He was the first hero, whatever. But they told you all your life he was a slave, a runaway. He was an African American, so-called, right? Or but the reality is that he was an Indian, right? And another thing he just mentioned, very important because we get into it in this series, is that he was an indentured servant. He wasn't a slave, he was an indentured servant. You got to understand what really happened. Slavery was not told to you correctly, all right? He was a runaway indentured servant. Why were they running away? Because they weren't meeting their contracts. They had a certain year of contract to serve these people for whatever service they gave them, such as mechanical work, farm work, construction, carpenter, whatever that was. It wasn't like how you think slavery was, So they had jobs. This was labor. This was a contract. So they weren't meeting their contract and they would run away. But he told you straight up, it wasn't slavery. He was an indentured servant.
It's in 1750. The original newspaper's announcement posting a reward for his return described him as a mulatto fellow, literally. And in 18th century parlance, at least in New England, mulatto means a person of indefinite pigmentation. That indefinite pigmentation could be a result of racial mixing. That's not necessarily the case. That person could be a mixed European Indian, could be a mixed European African, could be an African Indian mixture, or could simply be an Indian person who Europeans assumed had a vague sort of brownish skin color. There's absolutely nothing to imply in that usage that Crispus Attucks is an African.
In 1847 reports. All right, so nothing. All right, so we went over it actually very in depth in this. We got the actual books from his time. We got the real records from the town he lived in, the genealogical records of the family, the Attucks. They were Indians, all right? These were Indians, right? But this is how they portray Crispus Attucks, right? A black man, a so-called Negro, but he was an Indian from Natick in Framingham, Massachusetts, all right? Did he know that? Did you know that? First one to die in the American Revolutionary War was an Aboriginal. Alright, so make sure to get part 7. Alright, of that. Then, alright, this video again, this is part 1 of my series of
by Hawad, the framer and the shaper.
Hawa, the framer and shaper, right? That's like in the Popol Vuh. Ha, the breath. Wah, all right. So Untold Ancient American Truth. Remember in the beginning we saw part 6. This is part we talk about Louis Agassiz, what he said. He's the most renowned geologist that ever existed. If you take geology in college, you have to read his books. It's part of the curriculum. All right, so you can't say he's not a primary source or anything like that. He told you straight up, America is the true old world. All right, let's go to that part. All right, it says, firstborn among the continents, though so much later in culture and civilization than some of more recent birth, America, so far as her physical history is concerned, has been falsely denominated the New World. All right, her physical meaning the land. It's not the New World. Hers was the first dry land lifted out of the waters. America's the first land lifted out of the water. We're talking about real Atlantis, Lemuria. It's all connected. We're talking about first. We're talking about first, and of course, it's gonna have maize and the first people, first plant. We're talking about terrestrial paradise, the true old world. America, the true old world. This is page 1 of chapter 1 in his geological sketches. This is part of the curriculum for geology. America, the old world. Firstborn. All right. Make sure to catch this. I got another book in there that's really good that we go into. All right. One of my popular videos. All right. So then we got, hold on, sorry. Part 2 of the untold ancient American truth. We're talking about the Garden of Eden. What do you mean Garden of Eden? We're talking about Hesperides, first civilized. We're talking about that when the Spaniards and all these Europeans came here, what they wrote down when they saw the land and all the fruits and everything, how fertile it was. All right, and then we're comparing it to the stories of Atlantis, how it was so fertile and everything. It was the first people for agriculture and all that. Everything is described the same way. All right. All right, and then we got part 8 of my series from Indigenous American to African American. So this is the first part. There's 4 parts of this article called Making Indians White. Let me just read to you the title of this article. All right, so it says Making Indians White, the judicial abolition of native slavery in revolutionary Virginia and its racial legacy. All right, so this is a really good article. It took me 4 videos to read it all, but we read it all and we went over it and we discussed it together. All right, so that was the first part of that article. And then part 9 again, that's the part 2, second part, Making Indians White. We go over so much info here. We also talk about, let me see, I think we show other census. All right. And we're just talking about Open Mija's census and his family's history. All right, how they were classified from black, let me just see, to mulatto. All right, and so we're showing real census here, right? But we know he knows, and they know they're Indian, so obviously they're not classifying them correctly. But we show the transition in so many years. Every 10 years it was changing. All right, so make sure to get that. And that's again second part of Making Indians White, and that was part 9 of that series. Part 10 of the same series is part 3 of that article, Making Indians White. We start out actually talking about Shalawan Shabbat. Shalawan Shabbata. Shabbata means tribe. Shalawan is like blessings, right? All right, and peace and blessings. And so we got right here, Creek, a warrior, Tustenugi Ematla. All right, you see that? You see what he looks like? That's a real Cree right there. So I just wanted to talk about him as soon as the video started. And we get into the article again. Why Indians can no longer be slaves. Why Indians can no longer, so we go into it. Let me see, I think we also, this is another good article that we go into it, and we got this from other brothers who were sharing this on the internet as well. I believe 1,000, go ahead. The sincere fiction of Goree Island, Africa's best known slave trade memorial. All right, so they say Goree Island was a slave port, but when we went into the research, this is from the Washington Post, it actually was built really late into the slavery so-called years, and it really didn't have much traffic or records. It's a myth when they're talking about, the story they tell us is not the reality that we can research in history. All right, so even the Washington Post is letting us know. All right, make sure to get that. All right. All right, so just a little bit part. It said, except that the official story turns out to be largely a myth. Historians have agreed since the 1990s that the house was likely just a private residence that had nothing to do with the slave trade. All right, I even forget what I have in there. So I'm telling you, Goree Island, all right, supposed to be this famous slave thing. It's just a myth. It was a private residence. All right, makes sense to us now, right? But at one point we didn't. So then I got part 11 of my series, from Indigenous Americans to African American. This is the 4th part of Making Indians White. All right, and we also talk about some people fighting for their or suing to get claim their heritage. All right, and how long it's been taking them. Right, and there's different examples in this article. The Black Creeks. All right. Then we go into the article again, of course, and we finish it up. Make sure to get all those 4 parts right there. Very good article. All right, and then this is part 3 of my Hebrew series. All right, but we talk about James Adair and what he wrote. He wrote a very famous book. He's a renowned, historian when it comes to sourcing things for American Indians. So we're not going to leave out anything that he said. He lived amongst them for 40 years. All right, 40 years. So he must have known something. So, and we also go into the Seminole, a book we have about the Seminole. But then we go into a lot of books here. We're talking about archives of Aboriginal knowledge, all right, original papers, and before we're talking about real primary sources, all right. In regard to the manners, customs, and habits of the wild tribes of the Western Territory, a true and more correct type than any I have ever seen may be found in the ancient history of the Jews or Israelites after their liberation from Egyptian bondage. And it goes into really depth, saying it resembles that they're the closest people that can actually fit the story of the Israelites, right? So-called Jews. We're talking about Hebrews. When we're talking about Hebrew, means he from the other side, or those on the other side. He who crosses the river, right? Beyond the river, all right? Separates, migrates. This is also another reference, Eber, right? Eber. Strong's definition means pinion. Pinion is a feather. All right. So that's part 3. It's really good. Make sure you get that. All right, we're almost done here. I think we're almost done. Then we got part 12 of my series. All right, we continue. Now this is where I switched it up a little bit, and so because I was tired of people talking about the slave trade, and you can't say it did. Like a lot of people at this point, when they were following me, they were still like saying, well, I know some of us still came from Africa on the slave ships, and I was like, but you're not understanding. I don't think you're understanding. You've been here. All right, so part 12 goes into it right away. This basically what I call the slavery series, but it's part of the same, from Indigenous American to African American, just part 12, and it's labeled Your Conquest and Enslavement, Genocide. All right, what happened here? All right, who the Spanish and Portuguese were really enslaving. All right, we got all these records. All right, what Columbus was really doing, who were they bringing back. All right, thus even as Columbus was loading 5 ships with slaves, he was proposing to sell 4,000 in various parts of the Mediterranean along the coast of Africa, a reverse slave trade. All right, a lot of these people got taken to Cape Verde. Most of Cape Verde was all Indians. All right, we go into real primary sources. We're not just, all right, and then that's just part 12. All right, then we got part 4 of my Hebrew series. All right, and it's called Judah, Meshi, Ko, Meshi, Moshe, Meshi, Ko, Meshi Khan, Adair, and we go a little bit more into Adair, and we go to a lot of books. We also show documentaries. All right, just
the magnificent Newark earthworks. The first of what came to be known as the Holy Stones was found there, and 5 months later, at the Jacksontown Stone.
So they're talking about the Newark Holy Stones found in Newark, Ohio. All right, in this part of the documentary.
Mound a few miles southeast of Newark, he found something even more amazing.
They found one major earth structure in the center, surrounded by 12 small burials. David Wyrick went straight for the middle one, with 9 other gentlemen, and they began to dig that mound down. And they uncovered it. When they did, they found a wooden coffin made out of oak. And opening up that coffin, in there was a large skeleton of a man, but also in this coffin was a little box, no more than maybe about 8 or 10 inches in size, and it was cemented shut. Wyrick and the men, while they're all there together, they pried this box apart, and in it was a black stone. They opened this box, and here was this unusual artifact.
We own the Newark Holy Stones, and these stones were found in a Hopewell mound in the 1860s, and the presumption from finding them was that perhaps the American Indians had some kind of contact with the Hebrews, or possibly they were the Hebrews. That's another idea. So we have.
Or possibly they were the Hebrews. We're talking about You Are the Book. So dodge the hijack when you think we're talking about religions or anything like that, and we're talking about who came first, Hebrews or Mayas. You're not overstanding. You're not overstanding. All right. So I mean, if you got to just go into the stories of the Quiche, the Maya, and the Caciques again to see their origin story and where they came from and who brought them there and what happened on the way, so you can see how it resembles the Israelite story of Moses and everything. We just saw Moses right here in this stone. Again, that's Moses right there. All right, in the middle with a fro holding a tablet. That's the 10 Commandments in Paleo Hebrew. They found this in the Hopewell Mounds in Ohio. All right, this is not me making things up. And we go into so many books. Now we know that Utah, or showing right here, the relevance is that in the Bible there's a town named Utah, all right, or Utah. And we already know about Utah and Judah, all right. And in Judah and Apache, I believe, or one of the Uto-Aztecan languages, it means high place, a high place. We know that the Levites lived in a town called Utah, in a high place. They were called people living in a high place, or Utah, in a high place, people of the high place, Levitical priests, all right. So get into it. The name of Mexico, what does it really mean? Mexican, all right. Part 4, and we're going to also, I believe, the Red Sea. I think that's and the abundance of water that's there under Utah. Then we got part 13. Was able to get this. Well, I had to put this PDF together from different image scans, and I went to Acrobat and put it all together. Shared it with everybody, make sure everybody has it. All right, and this is called Unexpected Faces in Ancient America. All right, and though these gross distinctions on the figurines should be obvious to everyone, they are denied by many pre-Columbianists. Some of the latter say that an ancient statuette from Mexico showing black skin, kinky hair, and a flat nose and thick lips indicates nothing about the composition of the Mexican population during the lifetime of the artist. Right, so they find he's letting you know what he's trying to say, point out in this part of what he's writing. This author is that even though they find like these, stone, this pottery, with people with black skin, kinky hair, everything that you would call a so-called Negro, right, or an African, right? They still say, well, that was just an art. They were just imagining that, so he's pointing that out. Now, let's go into some of the images. All right. See, there's one of them. This is found in Veracruz, Mexico. All right. Let's go to some other ones. We already know about the Olmec statues, right? All right. See, these are all found in Mexico, Central America. All right. We even got one with a grill. Look at that. Golden grill, just like a football helmet looking kind of thing. Alright. We got this one right here, you see? See the features on here? It says a pre-classic Negroid head from Chiapas, Mexico. Rare Semite with blonde hair. Right here. It's talking about looks like a Hebrew. Alright. This is also found. Look at this. This was also found. Alright, and this is a Moshika. Remember we talking about Moshika. The Phoenicians spoke Meshika. Sounds the same, Moshika. That was a length portrait vessel, alright? This is from Peru. Alright. and so on. Then we got stonework like this. All right, they found this. I believe. Let me see. That's in Veracruz. All right. It's a very good video. Make sure you catch that. All right, it's part 13. The cover is they found this in Costa Rica. All right, and I thought it looked like Lil Wayne, and I think it does. And he even looked like he had like tattoos or whatever drawings, but I don't know. It just looked like he looks like he has a flat top and everything. All right. All right. So then we got part 14, slavery information that I got, and so this is called Transatlantic Slave Trade in Reverse. And again, we go so in depth with all these primary sources regarding who was really getting enslaved. All right. This is just interesting. This is in Belize right here. See that? See that person right here? See his features? All right. So who were they really enslaving when they were coming over here, enslaving or putting to work the Indians? It was just your ancestors. All right. So again, we're going through a lot of information showing who they really enslaving. We also begin, I believe, yes, this is where we begin talking about the article, The Illegal Beginnings of American Negro Slavery. All right, very good article. We go into in a lot of videos. All right, and so this is just one example. All right, let's talk about South Carolina became a major port for exporting Indian slaves. We're going to talk about that later. All right. Then we got part 5 of my Hebrew series, and man, we found this book by Diego Duran and Jose Acosta. These were frayers who were over here during those times in the 1500s. All right, and how they talk about their stories, how they were led here by their priest King Meshi. They had their own exodus. They had an Ark of the Covenant everywhere they went. Everything that they talked about and were their symbols, right? So these are Diego Duran was a very primary source from 1500s. He wrote a book. Let me see, it's called The History of the Indies. All right, and it's very famous, Diego Duran. Make sure you look for it. And right in the beginning of the chapter 1, he tells you that thus we can almost positively affirm that they are Jews and Hebrews. He said so much resemblance to what they hear and they're seeing here. These people live, all right, that they were like, this is what's in these books, these old Spanish. But now this is the English version. I got the original scanned copy. Let me just show you. I think this is it right here. So I got the original scanned copy. See, capítulo 1. All right, these are from the Library of Congress. I got them from archive.org. All right, it's saying the same thing. All right, capítulo 1. He's like, yo, these gotta be Jewish or the lost tribes. All right, this is from 1569, something like that, when he wrote this. All right, 1500s. So make sure to catch that. Part 5 is really good. And then I got this video is a little, it upsets me even when I read it and everything. But what happened here, the Holocaust, right? The real Holocaust, the plagues, the pestilence, the curses, and how it relates to Deuteronomy 28. We're not just talking about slave ships, but we already know who enslaved. Those were the Spanish and Portuguese were enslaved, and they did use ships, so it's all the same. It all relates, and all that happened here. All right, make sure to catch that. Very graphic, very graphic videos. All right. But make sure to get that drop. And then we got part 15 of the Aboriginal Americans. See, I didn't put from African American to I'm sorry, from Indigenous American to African American because it was kind of long. But this part 15 talks about the French involvement in the American Indian enslavement or put into servitude, or how they took all their lands and put them, conducted their own kind of genocide and Holocaust. All right, so the French enslavement of the American Indian, the Coureurs de Bois, have you ever heard of them? Talking about fur traders, they weren't just trading fur. All right, make sure the cash is really good, and how the French took the Natchez, the whole Natchez nation, into Haiti. Did you know that? All right, the French were enslaving a lot of American Indian tribes, sending them to Alabama, Canada, Detroit, the Caribbean, all over the place. All right. Then we got part 3 of my Untold Ancient American Truth series. It's a really good series. Again, remember, we're going really deep, really ancient. We're talking about the Pyramid of Cholula in this video. The Pyramid of Cholula, all right, which is, its base is 4 times larger than any pyramid in Egypt. We're talking about the stories, the indigenous stories that surround the Pyramid of Cholula resemble the same as the Tower of Babel or Belus. Like, when they're talking about that, in the Bible, that they built a tower and God got mad. So this is like a replica. The Pyramid of Cholula was like a replica of that story that the Indians had made from that same story, right? And then when people like Alexander the Humboldt, a famous historian, right, comes and measures the Pyramid of Cholula and sees it, he's like, yo, wow, this is just like what Herodotus describes the Tower of Belus looking like. We're talking about the Tower of Belus or Jupiter. The Tower of Belus or Jupiter. The original is right here, Pyramid of Cholula. So make sure to go get this drop. Alright, Pyramid of Cholula is basically a mountain. Alright, it's a mountain. Alright, let me see if you can get an image right here. So they built this church on top of this mountain, right? But it's a pyramid. The whole thing is a pyramid. It's all stone underneath this. They built the church on top of it. Alright. So now we got part 6 of my Hebrew series. Alright. We're talking about the different languages and how they resemble the Hebrew. This is written in a lot of different books. Alright, especially up there in Massachusetts. Talk about, I believe, how the first Bible was written in Algonquin. Alright, the first Bible was written in Algonquin. It wasn't in English, it wasn't in Spanish. In the Americas, it was in Algonquin. Alright, and talk more about the traditions, right, of the American indigenous people, how it resembles the ceremonies. Then we go into Los Luna Stone in New Mexico, how they found the Paleo-Hebrew, the 10 Commandments or 9 Commandments written in Paleo-Hebrew in a stone there, and it's just as old as 2,500 years at least accepted. Alright. So look into that, those Luna Stone. Let me see if we got an image right here. We got Glenn Beck talking a lot throughout this video. Glenn Beck dropping some knowledge as well. Alright, so this is the Luna Stones. This is one guy talking about it. Alright, and then we got part 16. It says from Indigenous American to African American. The process of enslavement. Alright, how they got you enslaved, or the process of making you a slave, or / POW, not ADOS. You're not a descendant of a slave. You're a POW. You're a prisoner of war. Alright, so we get into all that. Alright, and one of the books that we've been reading in this slavery series is this one right here, Faculty of Political Science of Columbia University. Alright, and it's titled Indian Slavery in Colonial Times Within the Present Limits of the United States by Alman Wheeler Lauber, PhD. Alright, Columbia University, 1913. Alright, so now we're going to go to page 118. Alright, so this would be chapter 5 in this book, and it says here processes of enslavement. Alright, because there's different ones. So this topic, this chapter would talk about war. Alright, so that's just one way of enslavement, and this is a very primary source, and it gives you the sources, got the footnotes. Alright, like this right here, the number 1. And so you can get that. Let me know if you want it, but I go into it. We read a lot from a lot of chapters in this book, in this whole series. Alright, not only that book, but also many other books. Alright, just as like we reference, let's see, Indian Slavery in Colonial Georgia. So many different books we go into. Again, we got this one, Forging New Communities, Indian Slavery and Servitude in Colonial New England. Alright. And we're going to so many books, alright, in all these different series, and we're talking about primary sources. We're not just talking about any Wikipedia, articles or anything like that. So the process of enslavement, POWs. I mean, it starts out. This is when it starts getting really good, and by now you should already know who the Spanish and English and French and all of them were enslaving. Well, all right. By this time, if you were following me, by part 17, now it says POWs, not ADOS, indentured service. And we're talking about indentured servitude and still how the Indians are getting sent everywhere by the thousands. All right, so it goes into many different tribes, what they happened to them, and how they got enslaved and where they got sent. All right, and a lot of them got sent to Europe and Africa, that way to the Caribbean. All right, make sure to catch this. This is a really good one as well. Part 18 was slavery a choice, that we're just quoting what's his name, Kanye West. So this is the illegal beginnings of American Negro slavery. Actually, this is a good part. Let me just see if we can get this. So they're talking about a case. We're talking about three indentured servants. Two of them were Europeans. One of them was a so-called Black American, right? They all three ran away when they got caught. Now these are indentured servants. Remember, these aren't slaves. But maybe their contract wasn't being met, so they would run away. So when they run away and got caught, the two Europeans got some extra time on their servitude, and then they got some extra additional time for the city. They had to work for the city for like 2-3 years extra. But you know what happened to the so-called black or the Negro? He got life. He got condemned to servitude for life, and that's what was really happening. All right, as servants, indentured servants. All right, and that the third, being a Negro, so the third person, which was a Negro, so-called Negro, right, American Indian, named John Punch, shall serve his said master or his assigns for the time of his natural life, here or elsewhere. You see what's going on? What went on back then is still going on today. So the so-called Negro got life. So he's the one that got life. Why didn't he get just an extra year and then 3 years with the colony? Why didn't he get that same sentence? Because he was a Negro, an Indian? How did he become from indentured servant to basically serving for life? He got life, right? So out of the three of them, two of them were European. We don't know if they were white Europeans, or if these were, Negro Europeans from this time. We don't indentured servants or slaves, right? You got to make sure you understand this. All right. So if you haven't gone to these videos, you haven't watched all these videos in depth, take the time. Take it like school if you really want to learn, because if you're definitely going to make comments and all that, and you think you know what my channel is about, especially if you're new or whatever, or maybe you just forgot all this information and you're still holding on to Africa and all that, and that, well, I know, majority, some of us were, in these ships, you're not understanding, right? So what I read about the indentured servants getting a little bit of years added on, and the black or so-called black person getting life. This was from judicial cases concerning American slavery and the Negro. This is a primary source. All right, this is from the archives. All right, Library of Congress. All right, this is real history. There's no such thing as slave ships. Find me one. All right, these were warships, battalion ships. All right, that's what it was. All right, they were enslaving who? The American Negroes or Aboriginals. All right, not Indians, what we think of today, like Native Americans. All right, we're talking about Aboriginals. All right, and it was James the First who granted the first charter for Virginia Company in 1606. All right, King James, that's so author of the King James version of it. He was, and he was a so-called black man too, and he helped colonize you, take your lands. All right, it's not just a white thing. You got to wake up. All right, that's part 18 again. Then we got part 19. All right, we're almost done with this series. Again, 1619, indentured servants, not slaves. So that's just the title, but we go into it so deeply. We even got this guy helping us out with that. He's letting you know what an indenture or contract is. All right, this is not slavery. They had contracts. All right, even the Europeans, a lot of them, most of them came here with indentured contracts. They had to work first. They didn't just get a free ride over here. We're talking about white Europeans and black Europeans coming in large amounts, working alongside the so-called Aboriginal Negro. So-called Negro, All right, American Negro or so-called Black American. All right, we're talking about they were in the same field doing the same service. All right, so these first so-called slaves in 1619 were actually coming from the Caribbean. They were stolen from a Spanish ship off the coast of Veracruz. The Spanish ship was coming from South America. That's where they just had picked up these so-called Negroes. They were Indians, possibly Caribs or Arawak. All right, and the English pirates took them. And then when they got up here, the whole story changed. Because when we grew up, they told us they were coming straight from Africa. That's what they told us when we grew up. They told me they were straight up coming from Africa, and it was all a lie. All right, and we got all the history. We're going to real prime sources, the history of slavery in Virginia. All right, it says history of slavery in Virginia. We're not playing. All right, talking about sources and all that. You're not even showing any sources. All right, take the time to go back to these videos. All right, who were these people? All right, so that's part 19, and then we got part 20. You know, and I feel like I can make more parts, but I just thought it was, man, that's enough because I mean, people don't get it by now. Now we got Kanye West. Slavery was a choice. Indentured servants or slaves. What's up? All right. And then so this is called First Negro Slave Indians in 1526. Because I even show that the Spanish were bringing up Indians, Caribs, or Taino Indians from the Dominican Republic, Hispaniola, Cuba. All right. And when they were in history, when they're writing about that, they call them that they were bringing up Negroes. They were bringing up Negroes in 1526. These were Indians. And then they took down, when they came up, they took down some East Coast woodland Indians back with them. All right. They enslaved them and put them into service. All right. So we're going real, we go real deep in this video as well. Again, all right. The Spanish settlements within the present limits of the United States from 1513, 1561. What were they doing? These expeditions, these so-called expeditions were slave raids. It says it in this book. They weren't expeditions. They were conducting slave raids, all right? They were conducting slave raids. A Carib Indian woman from Belize. You see who they were enslaving? You see this? North American Indian right here on the right. All right? You know, this is who the Spanish and English and Portuguese were enslaving. All right? We go real deep. Make sure to catch this part 20, this final part of this series. I mean, I hope this series helped you out, and I really, really want you guys to take the time to watch those 20 videos if you haven't. I mean, at least from the slavery part up, or at least from part 5 up, you know. Actually, I don't know. Just go all the way back. You get so much info you'll miss out on. You got to start in part 1. All right. Then I got this video, which it was, for me, it was really like, wow. Like, I was so shocked when I found this out. Like, when I correlated this, that Tituba, the so-called slave woman or servant from the Salem witch trials, she was an Arawak Indian. Alright, so that's how she's depicted in that movie. But this was an Arawak Indian. We got the whole proven history. We went into the books, the official books, alright? The Salem witch trials, Tituba, Caribbean black native woman, alright? But this is just an article. Hold on, let's go to the books. Well, you think we don't have the books? Tituba, Salem village, alright? Talks about where they were from. Then we got, alright, Tituba, reluctant witch of Salem, devilish. They were calling her a devil, but they broke it down. Look, part 1, Barbados, Tituba's roots, an Arawak from Guyana. She was from Guyana, Guyana, black land, South America. Guyana's in South America, Suriname, French Guiana, and Guyana in South America. Alright, Strange New World, an American Indian on a Barbados plant. Alright, Tituba the Indian. All right, and let me just show you another book we got in here. This was a really good book. Then we got the official book of the life of the guy who owned her, the guy who owned Tituba, called An Account of the Life, Character, and of the Reverend Samuel Harris of Salem Village and his connection with the witchcraft delusion of 1692. Read before the Essex Institute, November 14th, 1856, by Samuel P. Fowler. All right, and this is written in 1850 by the name of Abigail Williams and 2 servants. Again, 2 servants. Please remember, please look at what I'm showing you. Not slaves, servants. We're talking about indentured servants. Why? Because at this time, that's what they had, indentured servants. Named John Indian, an Indian, and Tituba, his wife or his relation or somebody from his tribe, he respected and called auntie. Both natives of South America. All right, so this book from the 1600s, which was read to people in 1850s, all right, letting you know this is the story of the guy who owned her, that these Indians, Tituba, one of them, the lady, the main character, supposed to be the witch, right, in the whole Salem witch trial thing, she was a native from South America, letting you know here. All right, American Indians from South America, okay? All right, so Tituba. All right, she was an Indian from Guyana. All right, you see this? This is from a map. This is Guyana natives represented here. You see so-called Negroes, very dark complexion, Aboriginals, and that's what Tituba was. All right, so dodge the hijack. So once you start investigating all these so-called African people and behind their story, then you start seeing that they were actually Indians. All right, these were Indians. Alright, so again, remember Crispus Attucks, he was an Indian, Tituba is an Indian, right? So make sure to catch this video, is really good. And then my next video, it says, it's called The True Origin of the Name America, which was Amaraka, Amaru, Land of the Plum Serpent, the Holy Cross. What does that mean? Alright, we go in really deep, we go into primary sources again. We're talking about real sources, all right? We're not just talking about anything, all right? So oh man, we go in. We're talking about real name. We're talking about that Amaraka it was already here. It was already here. That name, that whole word was already here. All right, it was a kingdom, the Amaraka kingdom. Amaru, that's the plum serpent. All right.
In short, there seems to be very little room to doubt that the world has been misled through the complimentary notice of the Florentine bishop who claimed the New World was named after Vespucci. What many American historians fail to mention or realize is that Native Americans have always had their own name for the New World. Historian Alec Locker elucidates. Children in America are taught that America came from Amerigo Vespucci, the Florentine mariner. Actually, the best evidence dating back to the earliest Spanish documents following Christopher Columbus shows that part of South America, from Venezuela to Peru, was called Amaraca by the Indians of that region. At least that is what the Spaniards understood. Various spellings of
all right, from Venezuela to Peru. You understand? That was a whole kingdom called Amaraca. Amaraca. All right, that's where they get the name. They didn't name it from Vespucci. All right, and when they're talking about these Spanish documents, I have them in this video. So make sure to catch that. Make sure to catch that. This is one of them. And this is Alexander van Humboldt. Travels to the equinoctial regions of America. He tells you straight up the name Amaraca. Alright, it's found in here. Alright, it's right here. So it says Maracapan, anciently called Amaracapana, Cumana Araya, and particularly Nucadis, built on the island of Cubagua, might have been considered in commercial establishments for facilitating the slave trade. For facilitating the slave trade, where? Here in America. Here in America, not in Africa, West Africa, in Amaracapana, Amaraca. Alright? That's just one source. We go into all of them. All right, we go into all of them. All right, so now we're coming into this book presented, it says here, to the University of Toronto Library. All right, by the Ontario Legislative Library, and the book is called "Discovery of the Origin of the Name of America" by Thomas de Saint Brice. Entered according to the Act of Congress in the year of 1888 by Thomas St. Brice in the office of the Librarian of Congress at Washington. All right, that's just one source. Here's another magazine. This is volume 13, number 5. All right. All right, so we're on page 406 of this magazine, and it says "The Name of America" by Alexander Del Mar. I look him up. All right, these are not just anybody writing these things. All right, so it says that the American continent derived his name from the Florentine merchant and geographer Amerigo Vespucci, and that thereby an injustice was done to Columbus is an impression which still retains a firm hold on the popular mind. Yet many proofs have been offered that before Columbus landed, listen to this, all right, many proofs exist, my people, right, that before Columbus landed, right, the name America The name America was found scattered over the southern continent, from the Caribbean Sea to the Pacific Ocean, and from the Maracaibo Gulf and Amaracapana Coast. Amaracapana Coast. The American, the Amaracapana Coast, Amaru Coast, near the Orinoco's outlet to the mountainous regions of Cox Amar, called the geographical and historical. All right. So just one more source. I just want you to see we don't play with this. We're not talking about people making up things, and when it's not mentioning anything about Morocco. All right. Historical Dictionary of America and the West Indies, containing the entire translation of the Spanish work of Colonel Don Antonio de Alcedo. All right. So you saw that was a this is a dictionary from those times. All right. Volume 1, 1812. All right, we're gonna go and we go to page 39 of this book, and right here it says Amaruca, right? The land of the plum serpent, Amaruca, a settlement of the province of Guyana and government of Cumana. So they took the indigenous name and they just settled it and just left it as it was called already, Amaruca, the land of Capana, right? Amaruca, a settlement of the province of Guyana and government of Cumana, one of those belonging to the missions held there by the Catalanians, Capuchin fathers. It lies south of the city of Santo Tomas. All right, Amaruca was a real place. All right, a real Spanish settlement. All right. All right, we're reading from this book. It's called A Collection of Voyages and Travels, consisting of authentic writers in our own tongue, which have not before been collected in English or have only been abridged in other collections. All right, and it's a long explanation here. It says, compiled from the curious and valuable library of the late Earl of Oxford. All right, so we're talking about Walter Raleigh in this book, and he tells you straight up the name of this region right here. It says that the large valley of Amariocapana did lie, whose inhabitants were called Guianians. The Guianians, all right? So Tituba was from Guyana, she was an Amaru. All right, you get it? It's all connected. All right, we got sources on top of sources, and it keeps going. This is a 2-hour video. Did you watch this video yet? All right, so we don't just have one part. We got part 2, right? It says part 2 of the true origin of the name America. But in this one, we even got more sources talking about a mountain range in the Central America called the Amerique and the Amerique tribe, the Amerisque, and how the whole Vespucci lie. We debunked it. We just debunked it in these last 2 videos right here. And talking about the Gold Coast, the Pearl Coast, the Riddle Coast. All right, all that right here. All right. And then we also got what? Part 3 of this topic, the true origin of Native America. And then we got what? The topic Tamari. Egypt is America. Tamaricans. Tamari.
Or anything dealing in the Bible dealing with Egypt. How do you know which one? Or which Egypt? Which Egypt are you from?
Alright, so you see Egypt. This is a brother's YouTube channel, Ezekiel 13:7. Tamari. You see? Tamari, Egypt. Alright. We know, that the Egyptians themselves, let's go to the Egyptian. We ain't playing. We got the Egyptian dictionary, right? The hieroglyphics from a well-renowned where it was. All right, so we went through a lot of references, right, referring to Egypt as Tamari. This is one of them. It's called an Egyptian hieroglyphic dictionary with an index of English words, king list, and geographical list with indexes, list of hieroglyphic characters, Coptic and Semitic alphabets, etc. By Sir E.A. Wallace Budge. It says M.A. and L.I.T.T.D., Cambridge, Massachusetts. All right, and it says sometime scholar of Christ College, Cambridge. All right, and it says he was the keeper of the Egyptian and Assyrian Antiquities British Museum. So very important guy, scholar. This is volume 2. We're going to go into volume 1 and 2. All right, this is around 1920. All right. All right, so we're on page 815 in this book in volume 2. And we find here the word Tamerau. Tamarau. What does it say? People of the land of the Nile flood. We're talking about the Mississippi, Colorado River, Grand Canyon. What we talking about here? That's the real facts. All right, so dodge the hijack when you're thinking about Nile River today. So Tameru, the people of the land of the Nile flood. Example, the Egyptians. A Tamaru is an Egyptian of the Nile flood of the Mississippi. Tamaru. All right, now look at this. Remove the T, right, and remove the A in the bottom. What are you left with? You left with Ameru. Amaru. Ameru. Tupac Amaru. Amaru. The plum serpent. Remember? Tameru. Amera. Tameri. All right.
Pyramid on the Nile in Northeast Africa doesn't have stair steps going up it. It doesn't have temples on top of its summits. They could not go and break through the boat on the temples atop those great pyramids. There are none there. And that was the clue that Egypt was writing about the Americas. And the deeper I got into the records, the clearer it got. They started actually saying, and because Amen loved that land so much, he said it's his beloved land, and that word was Mary, the beloved. Mary, M-E-R-I, Mary. And the land, of course, as before, is Ta. So you have the beloved land, Ta Mary. And they kept that name and just put the Ta on the end of it. So Ta Mary became a Mary Ta. We simply say America. We kept the name that Egypt gave to the Americas. So that was the big mystery behind that $10 million map that Martin Waldseemüller made and then put the name America on it in 1507. And then those who knew and those who were trying to hide things said, wait a minute, you can't put that name on here. And the next time he reprinted that map, it was off. It was gone. Because that's the name that Egypt had given the land, Tamari.
And we're back. All right, so, you know, Tamari, and we saw those maps, right? We saw those maps right there. And, you know, those maps, we already know that there was a settlement, a kingdom here named Amaraka. All right, we broke that down in part 1. All right, so, you know, that's why they were naming that part of it's mostly South America, Amaraka, America. All right, or / Atlantis. So that's that series, that 3-part series. Then after that, we got part 7 of my Hebrew series. We continue. We know that the word Yohewashi was a part of the in the language of the natives, and they actually sang it in their ceremonial practices and stuff. We're talking about the New Word Holy Stone again, Ibariev or Hebrew Indians speaking the Paleo Hebrew, and I mean we get really deep in these Hebrew things, and we're reading from a lot of books, not the Bible. All right, so then we got part 5 of my Untold Ancient American Truth story. We're talking about Graham Hancock and how he's, you know, his new book talking about there was 100,000 years of forbidden history here in America. They just out. All right, they left all that out, right? They left all that out. All right, and this is what they're finding in those. Let me just show you. This is what they're finding in with the LiDAR scan in the temples inside. Right here, you see this? In the Petén region in Guatemala, you saw National Geographic. They're finding 60,000 structures. This is inside one of those temples. All right, you understand? We're talking about ancient Tamari. We're talking about ancient, the true old world. All right, we're talking about you're not African. All right, you didn't come on a slave ship. You've been here, and you didn't navigate here from Africa. You've been here. It's the opposite. All right, who civilized who? We saw that already in that article, right? And we go over that in a lot of these videos. All right, so part 5, this is really deep, really good. We talk about what they found in Mexico, expeditions they did there as well. All right, Lord Kingsborough and all that, and you know, oh man, it's a lot of info. Part 6, awesome. Again, we already got it. That was my beginning video, right? Then we got, after this, part 1. It says here, this is one of my popular videos. It's shorter. American Indian True Historic Descriptions and Never Before Seen Photographs. All right, never before seen photographs. Let me just show you this description. All right, this is a really good one. R. Swanson. All right, Institution, Bureau of American Ethnology, Bulletin 73. It says the early history of the Creek Indians and their neighbors by John R. Swanson. All right. And it says here on page 43, it says the Spaniards have visited several regions of that vast country, and they're like, I believe, in the area of South Carolina, North Carolina, where they first arrived in the 1500s. You caught my past videos. They're called Arambi, Guaicaya, Cuajate, Tansaka, and Pahor. Do you know the name? Do you ever heard of these names, these tribes? The color of the inhabitants is what? Dark brown. The color of the inhabitants is dark brown. Dark brown. None of them have any system of writing, but they preserve traditions of great antiquity in rhymes and chants. In rhymes and chants? So we got inhabitants who are dark brown, who be rhyming and chanting. Rhyming, right? Rhyming, freestyling, chanting, rhymes, dark brown. Put it together. Dancing and physical exercises are held in honor, and they are passionately fond of ball games. They're very fond of ball games. Who does this sound like? Let's go again. Inhabitants are dark brown, right? They pass their time in rhymes and chants, and they're very fond of ball games, in which they exhibit the greatest skill. They're very good at it too. Alright, they're very good at it. They're fond of ball games and they're very good at it. They're dark brown. Their complexion is dark brown and they be rhyming. Who they talking about, so-called Negro? Alright, so then we go into another book right there and how they describe the Indians, and then we show images again. So very good video, very short but precise, very factual, historical. Alright, some images you might have not seen. Go ahead and check that out. So then this is one of my so I got tired of the whole, well, do your DNA test, see where it puts you. People still believe in DNA tests. Even people in our community were still believing in DNA tests. So I had to address that in the beginning, because a lot of people were trying to become Indian just by doing DNA tests, spitting in a tube. So I thought that was a little crazy without doing their genealogical work to really see who they were coming from, what their family was, and their location. But, in this video, I mean, we show how it's all entertainment. Even in their own books, their own scientists, everybody's mocking it. All right, it's not real. It's not real at all right?
5 different sets of results?
Hi.
Hello, Dr. Gravel.
Welcome to the lab. Nice to meet you.
He is a population geneticist at McGill University in Montreal.
Last time you saw your DNA, I'm guessing it was in a little tube like this.
I spit in quite a few of those,
That's
yes.
right. So once you send those to the companies, they'll take your saliva, they clean it up, they will break down the cells so they can free the DNA, and then clean the DNA, break it into small pieces, and then they lay it out on one of these chips here.
So if we look at that chip, will my spit on this chip tell me that definitively I am Italian or definitively I'm from wherever?
No. There's a lot of steps that go in between, a lot of statistical interpretation and models, and whose genome your genome is being compared to. It's not 100% sure. So statistics tell us in our model what's the best situation. It is a statistical guess.
Yeah.
It's an informed guess, but it's never a 100% sure thing.
Okay. Timothy Caulfield is a health policy professor who studies the ancestry business.
It's an exciting story, right? It's about you, right? And so I get why they're doing it, but is it really what's happening? Can they really be that accurate? I think they're selling something that isn't really supported by the science.
What do you think about the messages that are being sent to consumers?
I think it's misleading. These companies are really trying to push the idea that this is scientific, right? They are using scientific language and they present it in a way that looks very sciencey and precise.
Caulfield says what people are really buying is entertainment.
I think it's recreational science. They can have a little bit of fun with this stuff. Don't take it too seriously, but know that you're just getting some information that is an approximation of how your DNA compares to other people. It's not tracing back your heritage.
Back in Montreal, Gravel agrees.
These specific percentages should not be interpreted as like definitive, like here's your percentage ancestry from this place. Like that's not that.
No. Yeah. Get this. Over at Living DNA, in the fine print, the company admits some of its results are guesses. We highlight the sources of your ancestry which are likely to be present, using our best guess of the exact source. The deeper I go, the more questions I have. And at 23andMe, their guesswork isn't apparent until we stumble upon this. Select confidence level. What? Why does it say 50%? Does that mean you're only 50% sure what you told me is right?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Is that what it means?
Yeah, I mean, or at least 50%.
That seems shocking. Only half sure?
Yep.
Do you think that most people know that?
No. No, I would like it if they presented their uncertainties more clearly.
That's right. 50% confidence is 23andMe's default setting.
We're in this article. Alright, so then we go into this article, The Science and Business of Genetic Ancestry Testing, all these doctors and scientists on it. Man, we broke it down. They're letting you know it's not real. It's entertainment, alright? You cannot, there's no clear connection between an individual's DNA and his or her racial or ethnic affiliation. Alright, you can't do ancestry doing it like that. Alright, you cannot. I'm not going to go into this article here. I just wanted some other info, how they were scamming people. So they got all these famous actors, right, doing these tests, right, and then they get like 5-6 different results, alright, different tribes, and then she's like, but I thought I was this, and then they get Rick Kittles, and he's interviewing. That's when he spills the beans. But let me just show you these twins. It's very interesting.
About Vi's ancestry. The DNA does indicate that she has distant relatives in the Mende tribe, but she also has relatives in all those other tribes. So no one can say for sure where Vi's maternal ancestor actually came from.
Italian, 37.7.
Ooh, 36.8.
But then we begin growing apart.
There's
I'm only 28% Eastern European on this one.
I'm only 24% Eastern European on this one. This one actually says Poland.
Mine doesn't.
Mine does.
What?
Yeah. Look. Poland possible match.
Poland was not detected on mine. It specifically says not detected.
And it gets weirder. Okay, this is hilarious though, because look, French and German. What? Oh, I don't have that. You don't have that at all? No. We're identical twins, but you'd have to wonder with results like these. In search of answers, I traveled to New England, to Yale University, and meet up with Mark Gerstein and his international team of computational biologists. They study DNA and statistics, and they are stunned by our twin results.
I have to say that one really shocked us. I mean, we expected
two identical twins to have the exact same ancestry, and they should. So the fact that they present different results for you and your sister, I find very mystifying. We thought for sure that the differences had to do with just when one person spit, there was a contaminant in the sample, or.
But then you looked at the raw data, and you're saying you checked, and there's no difference.
No difference. It's like it's shockingly similar. It's like it's scarily the same.
23andMe isn't the only company with funny twin differences.
Oh great, now you're Scottish and Irish. All right, I give up.
Living DNA is serving up some stumpers too. Yours says South Italy and mine says Tuscany.
I just don't understand how you could have a Tuscany marker and I don't.
I don't know.
You have to come from one region. You cannot come from Tuscany and from Sicily. It just doesn't work like that.
So, if the DNA technology says we're identical twins, why are some companies giving us different ancestry breakdowns?
We spend many hours, we try to understand why they might be different, but we cannot.
I think that the clean thing to say is we don't know how they did the calculations, but we strongly think that you and your sister should get the same report. End of day.
I was once 100% Irish. I do love Guinness an awful lot. But now apparently I'm like 80%.
Your results don't stay the same over time. Often they change as the companies update their databases. The commercials don't mention that. What do you think of that?
They don't mention that, right? And it actually does evolve, which is a really telling point. It shows how imprecise it is, and it also gives you a sense of the way the science actually works.
People hear DNA and they think science, legit, CSI, Law and Order, everyone going to jail or getting out of jail because of DNA.
You're exactly right. And they're leveraging that excitement, the excitement that comes from the genuine stuff from science, but also the excitement in pop culture to give it this veneer of legitimacy. And I think that's a little misleading.
For DNA kits called into question. They are the kind advertised on TV claiming to trace your ancestry. A woman says she used 2 different popular services to trace her family history and got wildly different results. Fox 32's Tia Ewing reports.
This is my mother, my father.
Jennifer Smith says flipping through family albums helps her reconnect with the past.
And I just want to learn as much as I can about my history.
She recently took that learning one step further and decided to try a DNA testing kit.
Ancestry.com, very popular. You know, they're in all of the commercials. Everybody talks about them.
Smith received the kit, followed the directions, and mailed it back.
Just like the lady on TV says, you have to spit in the tube. It's not ladylike, but that's what you do.
Then she waited the 4 to 6 weeks.
And I was shocked.
Smith's breakdown from Ancestry showed 97% European and 2% Asian.
All right, 97% European, all right?
I'm a black girl. I am not a Jewish white lady. I'm black.
She said, I'm a black girl. She's not a European Jewish. This is so funny. You see what I'm saying?
Parents were black.
She contacted Ancestry with questions, but says a rep told her the results are accurate.
She told me there was no way they could have made an error.
Smith decided to try again, but this time she submitted a DNA to 23andMe.
And the results were very different, but they were not a surprise to me.
The 23andMe findings showed 70% African for Smith, after Ancestry's findings showed none.
All right, so Ancestry told her she was 97% European, right, with 43% Jewish, right? And so she went to another company. She said, "Oh, now this looks more better and more familiar to me." That's, you know, she's not, you know, she doesn't have the information, or she must not know she's an Aboriginal. All right, you know. So now they're like, "Yo, just tell her she's 70%." So they send it. Oh, you know, there you go. Now you're a whole different race, right? 2 different tests. So which one did you go with? What if you would have took this one first? You wouldn't have even never question anything else. Like, oh, I'm African.
Both kits can't be right. One of them has to be wrong.
These DNA tests for ethnicity are entertainment value only.
What?
Entertainment value only.
Say it again.
Entertainment value only.
One more time.
Entertainment value only.
All right, entertainment value only. People are still holding on to this. Don't you see as a joke, as a business? They're collecting your DNA and your saliva. They're using it for other things.
William Gilliland is a biology professor at DePaul. He says DNA kits can be great for connecting family members and finding relatives, but the science for ethnicity testing isn't as concrete.
There's nothing that confident for ethnicity. There's no diagnostic nucleotide. You can say this person is from Europe, this person's from Africa.
So what happened in Smith's case?
The simplest explanation is that one of these test results is just wrong, and the tubes got mixed up or contaminated or something.
We reached out to both Ancestry DNA and 23andMe. Ancestry tells us it's incredibly unusual to find variations of this magnitude. The company says it's best guess that the tubes were mixed up before they were sent to their labs. 23andMe says because companies use different algorithms to make ancestry assignments, you can find differences when comparing tests from different companies.
It's exciting to make discoveries like this, but if they're not true, it's heartbreaking.
So then you got Rick Kittles laughing there at the end. Ha 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 ha. His agenda, right? Whatever it is. Alright, so in this video we also mentioned the fact that they were sending in blood samples from dogs. Alright, and well, we talk about how they might be using, but anyways, they were sending blood samples from dogs, right? These people were doing it on purpose to prove that they were letting anybody into the tribe just because of DNA tests. Alright, and then it came back with results that the dog was indigenous. Alright, like this is real news. This is in Canada. This is really silly, so I had to bring that up. Alright, one of the dogs named Snoopy. Alright, so it says on August 26, 2017, he received 3 separate emails from Viagard, each containing a link to a PDF. The test results which he provided to CBC News were identical. Both Cody and Snoopy had 20% Native American ancestry and 12% Abenaki and 8% Mohawk. You see that? They was just going off the info of the guys. You know, they just go over your info like, well, he's this, he's from this reservation, just put he's this. He sent his dog saliva in. You understand? This is all a game. Alright? Let's get Rick Kittles telling you. Let me see. Hold on.
Handed Vi the certificate. She got extremely emotional about it. She wept, and it meant so very much.
People want to believe.
They want to believe they've gotten an answer.
And it's not fair of us to let them believe that we're giving them certain answers, because scientifically, we just can't.
Hank Greeley is concerned that the science isn't really there yet for you to be giving them the name of a tribe.
I think for most companies, I would be concerned too.
But what about your own company?
We have
He
the
didn't
largest...
exclude you. He included you.
But we have the largest set of sequences from Africa. And so with that, we're able to provide some level of probability in terms of frequency.
But he would say that even though you have the largest database, it's still small on the scope of things.
As I said, I share those concerns.
He shares those concerns.
Our DNA.
And that's the rub. This business of genetic genealogy is fraught with limitations. For one thing, it can only provide information about a tiny fraction of our ancestry. Because we get half our DNA from our mothers and half from our fathers, almost all of our DNA gets shuffled and remixed every generation, making it impossible to trace what comes from whom. There are just 2 bits of DNA that remain pure: the Y chromosome, which passes directly from father to son, and something called mitochondrial DNA, which passes unchanged from mother to child. Hank Greeley, a law professor at Stanford University, has studied this new field. He worries that people don't realize just how many ancestors they actually have.
8 generations ago, both you and I had 256 great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents.
Wait, you're saying that if you go back 8 generations, we have 256 great-great-great-grandparents?
Yes, it doubles every generation. So you've got 2 parents, you have 4 grandparents, you have 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great-grandparents, and it adds up fast. It adds up so fast, in fact, that if you go back 20 generations, you've got over 1 million grandparents.
1,048,576 to be exact. And in each generation, DNA testing can provide information about only 2 of them.
So you could be Peruvian on your mother's 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 side, Japanese on your father's 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 side, Swedish on everything else.
And you'll never know.
And you'll never know the Swedish from the Y chromosome or the mitochondrial DNA.
Now, you've looked at several of these companies that are doing these tests.
Yes.
Do you think that they explain what you just explained to us?
No, I don't think any of them does as good a job of pointing out the limitations. But, you know, businesses often don't go around telling you how weak their product is.
We don't oversell. I mean, we just say, look, we provide a service. If you're interested in exploring a tiny bit of your DNA and trace its ancestry, we can do that.
When you say it's a tiny little amount,
it's less than 0.1%. It's less than 0.1%. It's less than 0.1%. It's less than 0.1%. It's less than 0.1%.
And that's pretty teeny.
Yeah, but for people who know nothing about any of them, I think it's very important.
No,
all right. So hear what he said. It says that his whole DNA thing is 0.1% accurate. And she's like, but that's really, really tiny. He's like, well, for people who don't know shit or don't know nothing, hey, it could be a lot to them. We can trick them. All right, that's Rick Kittles right there. All right. And I just want to show. I know we skipped out a lot. And I want to show one part of this video. All right, which is to me very hilarious, and I think, I mean, he's just mocking everybody and letting you know, all right, how foolish this is. But I thought it was good. All right, so.
Black geneticist named Dr. Rick Kittles, who at the time was teaching at Howard University, sent me a letter. He's now at the University of Chicago Medical School. And he said that he was asking various African-American men if they would submit themselves to this new test. And through this test, he could trace on your mother's line where in Africa you were from. Man, that was some serious stuff. And I said, yeah, I mean, I called him right away, and I said, definitely. And he said that of all the people he'd written to, nobody was writing him back. And I couldn't figure out why, but I later found out why. So I said, would you want me to come to Washington? He goes, no, I'll come up to Harvard Square. It's where I was living. So about a week later, he showed up. And now, I've had many operations. I broke my hip when I was playing football when I was about 14. It was misdiagnosed by country doctors. So I've had a zillion operations on my leg, right? So I know about having blood extracted. If you could see my veins is, just look at a vial and blood pours out, right? I'm very easy to get my blood. Well, after half an hour, I realized that two things. That Dr. Rick Kittles is a brilliant geneticist, but he's not brilliant at extracting blood. I also realized why no other black male was stupid enough to let him come up to try to take their blood.
Stupid enough, all right?
My brother kept poking around, and I thought, damn, this Kunta Kinte stuff is hard work. How badly...
This Kunta Kinte stuff is really hard work, huh? This fictional story, Roots, right? Alex Haley's fictional story, plagiarized story from The African. A white man wrote a fictional story named The African, and he plagiarized it and made a movie called Roots, and they pushed it on us when we were kids. All right? They pushed it on us so they can enslave our mind, take our thoughts, all right?
Do I want to know where I'm from in Africa? But I really wanted to know. I'd wanted to know since I was 9 years old, so, you know, let's go for it. So finally, see, at the time, you had to extract a lot of DNA in order to run the test. Now, you just swab your cheek or spit in the test tube, depending on the company that you use. We could talk about that a little bit later. So it's very easy and it's very painless. So I waited and I waited and I waited. You know, Rick Kittles went back to Washington. I waited for the result. And I didn't hear from him. So finally, I called him. And you know how people do. He picked up the phone after I called him about 1 million times. He goes, oh, man, I was just about to return your phone call. I said, Rick, what's up, man? Where am I from? In Africa. Where are my people? You know, I want to jump on a plane and go. I thought I'd buy some land, you know, get a fine little African sister, you know, to hook up. I was single at the time, don't get me wrong. I'm still single. Well. So he said, well, we had to run, your results were anomalous. And we had to run them many times. But we finally have figured out where you're from. You are descended on your mother's side from the Nubian people. Now, all African Americans, not all African Americans, but many African Americans want to be descended from one or two ethnic groups. Either the Zulu, because the Chaka Zulu, and the Zulu kicked the English in the behind in the Boer Wars, right? Until they finally were overcome. But you want to be Zulu, or you want to be Nubian. Who were the Nubians? The Nubians were the black pharaohs, right? The Nubians are in the Bible. The 25th dynasty was the Nubian dynasty. In Egyptian art, they always hated the Nubians. Nubians are always represented as darker. You know, they were warring kingdoms. And Nubia ran from what today's Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, up to the Aswan Dam, the second cataract in the Nile River. And so a Nubian, and all these people wanted to be Nubians, descended from the black pharaohs. So my friend Molefi Asante, you know, the founder of Afrocentricity, we argued a lot in public, but we're very good friends privately. I joke, every time he attacks me, I get a raise at Harvard, so it's cool. So I attack him, you know. We do what Malcolm and Martin couldn't do, you know. Set it up, and then we go split the money and slap five and go to Sylvia's, have fried chicken. Believe me, that's a much better way to function than hating each other. So I called Malefi first thing. I said, Malefi, I just got my results back. I am a Nubian. Where are you from? I am the true African prince. My friend Anthony Appiah, whose uncle was the Asantehene, the king of the Asante people. When Rick Kittle sent me a certificate announcing I was Nubian, Anthony Appiah looked at it and said, "What a ton of rubbish." Now, why would he say that? Well, there's a slight problem with being either Zulu.
All right, so this African prince, right, from a special lineage of the Ashanti or Santi people, right? Right, because he knows how fake this is. He's like, that's rubbish, man. You ain't Nubian. And listen to this, man. This is you gotta use your logic right here. What he's about to say, right? Because first he's talking about you got taken from West Africa. So where was Nubia? Was Nubia in West Africa?
Or Nubian, if you're African American. You know what the problem is? None of our ancestors who came here in slavery came from South Africa, the Zulu people, or from Nubia. None, zero. Egypt is over here. The slaves came from the area from Senegal down to Angola. 97% of the slaves came from that region, all right? So, you know how long it would take it to walk from Sudan to Senegal or to...
All right, so you hear what he's telling you, right? It's on the other side of the continent. They weren't taken, you know, in the official story, they were taking them from West Africa, right? So how is this person, when he did his DNA test with Rick Kittles, the founder of AfricanAncestry.com or whatever, right, lied to him? He just wanted him to hear whatever he wanted him, you know, to hear, like what he wanted to hear. He wanted to be Nubian. He liked that. He's like, oh, I'm an Egyptian prince. But wait a minute. They were on the other side of the dude. The other African dude's like, yo, that's rubbish. That's rubbish, man. You don't know anything. Rick Kittles is joking on these people. 0.1% accurate? Not accurate at all. All right?
To Angola, it just didn't happen. So I looked at Anthony and I said, you're just jealous. Because I am a Nubian prince. I didn't care. I had it framed. I put it up in my living room so everybody could see that I was from royalty. So I didn't think about it. I thought maybe it was strange. Maybe it was on a trade route. You know, there were great Muslim trade routes. You know, today, this is important for the students. In my time, we were taught that the Africans were these benighted people, and they were too stupid to build a boat or to be curious about the world and cross the Sahara Desert. It was rubbish. Africans were just as curious as anybody else. The Sahara Desert was a highway. It wasn't a barrier. So I thought, well, and there were great trade routes. So I thought maybe my Nubian descendant had come over and ended up being tricked by some white man and ended up in Maryland or Virginia or something. So that was cool. And
so he makes up this whole crazy story to try to rationalize how he can be Nubian, right? Because you have to do that. You have to create this crazy story. All right, and that's what they did with our history.
If I needed an interpretation, believe me, I could have produced one. So, and by the way, you know, the Zulu thing, when Oprah was finally in the first series, and we gave her DNA test, basically the next day she went to South Africa to announce that she was opening what became the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy. She was in an auditorium like 75,000 people or something, and she announced that she just had the test and that she was Zulu. So it broke on CNN. I was sitting in my living room minding my own business and said, Oprah Winfrey's a Zulu. So I called Rick Kittles and I said, Rick, did you tell Oprah she was a Zulu? He goes, no, man, she made that up herself.
Do you hear this, man? So he's calling Rick Kittles like, yo, why you telling she's a Zulu, man? That's so fake. He's like, nah, man, she made that shit up herself. She must know it's fake. So she's like, oh, well, let me choose the Zulu, right?
It's a true story. It's a true story. I would lie to make you laugh, but I'm telling you a true story.
True story.
So I said, Rick, are you in your lab? He said, yeah. I said, is anybody there? He said, no. I said, when the results come in, make her Zulu, man. You know? I said, you back there making it up anyway. Nobody believe you could take some spit and figure out a tribe? What are you crazy?
Okay, you hear what he's saying? Hold on, man. So he's saying, yo, he called Rick Kittles, right? He's like, yo, make her a Zulu, so don't look bad, so people, in case people started researching or whatever, and asking for the test results. So he's like, you're making it up anyways. So this guy right here, he's joking about it, right? But I think he's trying to tell people, something here. And he's saying it in a joke, and he's laughing because it is so silly, because he knows it's so fake. All right, it is fake, man. Like that's why I put this meme right here from the beginning. This is silly, really silly. All right, and he's laughing about it, and he's telling him, just make it up. You're making it up anyways, man. He's knowing, acknowledging to him that he knows this fake is a joke, right? And he starts laughing, right?
Anyway, nobody believe you could take some spit and figure out a tribe? What are you, crazy?
You can't take some spit and figure out a tribe. What are you, crazy? What are you, crazy? DNA?
Nobody believe you could take some spit and figure out a tribe? What are you, crazy?
Nobody except these two geniuses. Take a good look, man, over there in Egypt and everything. They didn't even take them from Nubia, man. Silliness, man. Jokers.
Nobody believe you could take some spit and figure out a tribe? What are you, crazy?
Nobody except these two geniuses.
Brother Washington, for your mitochondrial DNA, it's quite common among the Mende and Temne people in Sierra Leone.
Why you do that for? Why you do that for? Get over here. Snap out of it. Yo, snap out of it. DNA test? DNA test? DNA test? Say DNA test one more time. DNA? What? I'm saying that. Say one more time. DNA test. Alright, a little bit of humor, man. We gotta lighten up, man, because this is a messed up situation that they got everybody in. It's a whole lie, and I took long in that video, but I think that video is very important, even though it doesn't have a lot of views. I think it's very important how they trick you, how they play everybody, right? And this is everybody's best comeback, a DNA test. That's all their scholars' best comeback, a DNA test. It's fake, it's entertainment only. It got debunked, and they're still running with it. This was 7 months ago. Man. So let's continue, all right? I know we got sidetracked there, but yeah, my next video after that was part 7 of Untold Ancient American Truth. And we went into the Father Crespi collections that he had in Ecuador, that he was being brought from the Indians, by the Indians, these gold tablets, these old world artifacts with these ancient writing, Babylonian, Sumerian looking things, Assyrian looking things, all right? Few travelers knew of his collection, and even fewer scientists. He was a private person with a big heart and a deep interest in the past. Where and how do the Indians find these incredible things, we wondered. Oh, they just get them from the caves and subterranean chambers in the jungles, he answered in an offhand manner. Alright, so did you hear that? So these local or modern Indians that were there at this time, bringing Father Crespi, were actually not the ones who made these things. They were finding these things in the caves. These were things left by the aboriginals or ancient people, antediluvian people of Ecuador. All right. There are over 200 kilometers of tunnels starting here in Cuenca. All right, 200 kilometers of tunnels under Cuenca in Ecuador. They run from the mountains down to the eastern lowlands near the Amazon. You hear that? Wayne Hamby, an assistant to Cheeseman, spent a few more days with Father Crespi to catalog and photograph the entire collection. His results went into the files of Dr. Cheeseman, who died after his retirement from the faculty of Brigham Young University. 2 years following our visit to the kindly priest, I returned to Cuenca with Ben Holbrook, our 2 young sons, and a pair of Ecuadorian LDS missionaries acting as interpreters. We were greeted by a young priest who informed us that Carlos Crespi had passed away in January 1980, and his collection was no longer available for public view. In spite of many efforts to convince him that we had traveled a long distance to view the relics, he stubbornly refused to allow us to see the treasures. He insisted that the room with the artifacts could not be shown on orders from the Vatican. Alright, so the Vatican said don't show any of these things to anyone else. When Carlos Crespi died, they were like, no, alright, we gotta seal this up, you know, don't show it to anybody else. They told the priest that was there, so he didn't let him in, says here. To my knowledge, no one from the outside world has seen the treasure since the death of the old padre. Mr. Barton heard rumors that much of the treasure had been shipped to Rome, to the Vatican, and I wouldn't doubt that at all. Hidden in their vaults, right? In their basements, along with other many things that we know they had. Richard Wingate, a Florida-based explorer and writer, visited Father Crespi 4 times during the mid to late 1970s and photographed the extensive artifact collection. He says this concerning his visits. Alright, so I actually have one of Richard Wingate's books. So let's go to the source directly because they're going to read the exact same thing that's in his book. Alright, so now we're in this book. It's called Lost Outpost of Atlantis. Lost Outpost of Atlantis by Richard Wingate. And we're going to read from chapter 1 of this book. It's called Treasure Atlantis in the Andes. Alright, so we're going to talk about same thing we've been reading, right? Alright, so yeah, I mean, that was a really good video. I know a lot of you guys like this video. I enjoyed making it. I have, the story of Father Crespi. For a long time, I've known about it. All right, and they used to play these kind of those videos, same videos, and like all these mystery TV shows back in the 80s and 90s, unsolved mysteries and all that stuff. So I was aware of it, but I got really deep into it, the research in this video, and you can see everything that was found there, how unique it is, and how ancient it is. All right, what was found there, and how they hid it. Now it's in a bank vault or something by the Vatican, and there's all kinds of things there in the rainforest of Ecuador. They're finding pyramids in there and everything. All right, so make sure to go check that out. We're just talking about a lost outpost of Atlantis, the true old world Atlantis, the real Atlantis. All right, so again, that was part 7 of Untold Ancient American Truth. Then after that, I made part 8 of Hebrew Aboriginals of America. And we talk about what the fringes, Ibra, the feather, breaking all that down, Columbus, his Hebrew interpreter, Luis de Torres, and so many other info. I mean, the titles don't really describe the videos because there's so much information. I just try to like summarize it, but really I can't. And it's just all over the place. Again, Atlantis, Insula Atlantis, South America. All right, compare it. That was a drawing that they did back in the day. It was actually flipped the other way around though. All right. And so we go into a lot of books here as well, again. All right. And then we got Untold Ancient American Truth, part 8. All right. Very good video. This one's called Queen Mu is Isis. Queen Mu is Isis. Ancient Egypt in America, the Mayans, the Finns. We go into, oh man, Queen Mu, Le Plajon's book. All right. We go into all that. Alright, let me see if we can get a little extra. We're going to another book, Atlantis into the Diluvian World. Alright, breaking that down. Alright, you see. And all the stuff that we basically have covered from this time. And their correlation, the true Tamari or ancient Egypt. Alright. We're going to all that and what they found in Palenque. The expedition done in Palenque. Look at this. At Palenque, a rectangular square surrounded by cloisters built in this manner, being lighted by windows bearing the exact form of the Egyptian Tau. Alright, Egyptian Tau in Palenque, Mexico. Alright. Alright, so let me just see if we can get. Well, we go deep in this book, so make sure to get that. Queen Mu, the story of Queen Mu, the Sphinx. Alright. Queen Mu and the Sphinx. Alright, make sure to get that. Alright, this was from June 17th of last year. All right, and then we got part 9 of Untold Ancient American Truth. All right, so we got the origin of animals, mammals, camels, horses, and dogs. All that originated here in America. Most animals, and they tell us that Egypt, had camels and all that, and lions and all that, but they didn't get those animals until 10 million years ago. Did you know that? They didn't get all those animals until 10 million years ago in Africa. All right, and the camels actually originated here in America. All right, here in America, I had a lot of scientific articles, all right, explaining where all these people, these animals originated. And it wasn't in Africa or Asia. It was actually from here. They went on a reverse migration to the other side, from here to Asia. All right, let me see. Let me show you this map. Go. Migrations to South America and Asia occurred approximately 3 million years ago. So they just got them 3 million years ago. We've been had camels here way longer than they. All right, so it's a very interesting book. We talk about elephants, the jaguars, the lions, everything, mammals. The dog, the horses originated here in America. Horses originated in America, and they told us they were extinct by the time they got here. We break down Noah and the animals that went in. We're talking about where was Noah really, and all these animals really. We're talking about this was the Garden of Eden over here. This was a terrestrial paradise. This is where all the animals were. All right, prehistory, what they call prehistory. All right, so we break that down a lot. And this is a very good book. I mean, video. Just go watch it. You'll enjoy it. We proved that the horse, the dog, everything originated here. It's the earliest ancestors, elephants. All the elephants we had here, different types of elephants we had here. That was one of them right here. All right, you see, we had so many different types of elephants here. All right, and lions, the American lion. All right. So make sure to catch that. And then we got this video I made, part 1. It says never before seen historical depictions and images of American Indians. And this is let me see, this is an hour. It's just pure images from different types of books, different sources, showing so-called Negro Indians everywhere. Famous paintings, famous books, all right, old books, Spanish book, English books. Let me just show you this. Alright, so real quick, just want to show you what I found in this book. It's a Spanish book. It's called Historia del Descubrimiento y Conquista, History of the Discovery and Conquest of America. It says written in German by the celebrated Count P, and translated to Castellano, which is the old Spanish, by Don Francisco Fernandez Villabrille. Alright, so this was written in 1845. Alright, and I found this inside the book. It's like one of the only images. There's like 2 or 3 images in this book, and this is one of them. Alright, so check it out. It's a so-called Negro or Negro. This is American Indian Aboriginal. Alright, and in the bottom it says Jefe Indio or Indian Chief. Indian Chief. In the bottom it says Jefe Indio or Indian Chief. Alright, do you remember who you are? This is your land. Alright, Amaru Khan. Alright, so that's just one example. I mean, the whole video is just different books on breaking down or maps, right? And then on the other side, we got other ones. Alright, you see that? So do you remember who you are? Alright, and of course, we got her on the alligator, right? Check it out. Who is this? Look at the feathers. You seen the slave ads when they were selling slaves, how they were dressed? Same thing. All right, you see Columbus and them were the European Spaniards coming, and you see our ancestors, the Aboriginals, greeting them with gold. They were giving us trinkets, all right, bringing their cross. Look at that, the Christianity. This is from 1701 to 1750. All right, America. All right, so that's from the John Carter Brown Library image collections. You can go on that website and get so much. And I think we go right into another book. All right, so now we're in this book. It's called The Present State of Peru, comprising its geography, topography, natural history, mineralogy, commerce, blah, blah, blah. Its inhabitants, right? State of literature, philosophy, and the arts, and all that stuff. The whole drawn from original and authentic documents. All right, let me zoom in. From original and authentic documents, chiefly written and compiled in the Peruvian capital and embellished by 20 engravings of customs. All right, so this is very historically accepted, and this over here says llamas or Peruvian sheep. Oh, you thought we didn't have sheep and lamb? You think sheep and lamb only look a certain way? Well, they grow fur here and very soft, just like a lamb. All right. All right, this is written in 1805 and it's written by Joseph Skinner. All right, so look at this. These are real Incas, aboriginals. Look at how they're dressed. All right, this is their costume. All right, their royal costume, it says. All right, see how they're depicted? You see this? These are so-called Negroes. All right, remember City of David, Cusco. What did we find there? City of David, what did we find there? Have you seen my City of David video? Go take a look. I'm not saying officially concrete, but we know there was 1 or 2 locations, right, of ancient Jerusalem, right? We know that Cusco means navel of the earth in Quechua. All right, and we know that Jerusalem's always considered to be in the navel of the earth, or the belly button. All right, so, you know, just take a look, but look at how they're dressed here. Look at this. This is royalty. All right, that's your ancestors, the true American Indians, true Incas. All right. All right, so that's again the recap of this video, what it's like, and we keep going on different books, different images, all that. Now remember, these are Peruvian, these are Inca kings and queen. All right, Cusco, what we talking about? We're talking about the real ancient Jerusalem. Cusco, we're talking about City of David. Look how they're dressed right here, you see? All right. Now, after this video, I did part 2 of that, same thing. I mean, another hour, just images. Right here, we're looking at Guatemalans. Americans and European present offerings to a monk. Includes their offering of both animal skin, sugar canes, and a frog or toad whose blood is collected in a vessel. In the background, volcano erupts, and a llama carries a burden up a hill. Also includes a battle between a lion and a bear. A lion and a bear. All right, a lion and a bear in America. A lion. Now we just did the animal video. All right, where the carnivores and mammals originate here in America. All right, so a lion, a llama going up, says in the mountain. We got 3 Indians here. See their complexion. These are Negroes, so-called Negroes, right? All right, from the creator, which is Thomas Gage, and the source is from the book English American Has Traveled by Sea and Land. All right. So it's from Thomas Gage and His Travel by Sea and Land, a book he has. All right, it's in German, but you can see how they drew the, and this was in Guatemala. All right, so you can see how he drew the aboriginals. All right. So the description again says Thomas Gage, an English Dominican friar, reported that the Pokemon Maya. All right, the Pokemon Maya. So this is Pokemon Maya. All right, you see how dark they are, Pokemon Maya. All right, you see this? This is a Pokemon Maya. A Maya. You see how dark this person is, right? A Maya. All right. Added. All right. All right. So we go into actually a copy of a Mexican codice, right? They were how the drawings were inside. Let me just show you real quick. All right, how they were depicting the caciques. Look at this. All right. All right, you see that? This is from Mexican codices. All right, look at that. All right, do you remember now who you are? You see that? That's what they're depicting the Mexica or Aztec, the ancient Aztecs as. All right, you see that? Another one. All right, you see his complexion is dark. Got another one right here. You see? This is from Mexican codices. All right, so these 2 videos, like I said, it's all images. All right, it's all images from different paintings, different books, everything. All right, and I still got a lot more to show. I haven't even continued that series. In fact, I'm basically going to continue all these series. All right, most likely. All right, and so after this, I have The Truth. Now this is a really good one too. We've probably seen this image of the last full-blooded Aztecs shown to us. Let me see if we can get the image. This one right here. All right, so I made this video. So this is the image I was talking about. So in the internet, you've probably seen this. Well, basically, what I show in this video, who they really are and where they really came from, and they actually weren't from Mexico at all. All right, they might have not been Aztec, or they might have been, but they had their own people. They were actually from El Salvador. They were Indians from El Salvador, so they're still Aboriginal people, right? Look at their hair. Their complexion was really dark. They had this disease that made them look like, you know, they were little and everything, and they were referred to as the Aztec Lilliputians. They were paraded around, you know, the circus as freaks, you know, in Europe and U.S. All right, but they were from El Salvador. They got taken from their mom in El Salvador. She sold them, supposedly the story goes, or whatever. But you know, they were you know, this is the Aztecs. They call them Lilliputians. This is an old ad. This is another one, Aztec Lilliputians. Alright, so I break down where they really came from on it. Alright. And some newspaper articles talking about it, from an old newspaper article, how they were from El Salvador. Alright. So go ahead and get that. It's a really good video. Alright, if you're interested in knowing, you know, the truth about those two. Alright. Then after that, I got part 9 of my Hebrew Aboriginal series, all right, which we again go into so many different books. All right, we go into Popol Vuh, comparing it with the Genesis more in depth. All right, the creation story, Palenque, the Temple of Solomon, because there's a replica of the Temple of Solomon there, the tower and everything. All right, did you know that this was being written in 1700s, 1800s? All right, all over the place. So very good video. Alright, make sure to get that. We go into a lot of his primary sources and historic books. Alright. Colonies of Atlantis. Look at the Central American, Mexican colonies, the Egyptian colonies, the colonies of Mississippi Valley, the Peruvian. Alright. Then we get, after this, I made part 10 of the Untold Ancient American Truth series. Alright, that I have. And it says the ancient Nagas are the Maya, Lemuria, America. Alright, the ancient Nagas are the Maya. You know, the Nagas, the Hindu Nagas. Talking about the Khans, the Serpent Kings. All right, here we start out with Treda Wakandan. Make sure you get him on Instagram and YouTube. You got a lot of drop, a lot of good info. Alright, but yeah, we're going to a lot of good books in this video. Let me see. One of them is the Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids by Peter Tompkins. All right, really good book. And I mean, we just go into so many different books here. All right, so you know, I'm gonna show you, you know, what Mr. Leplojon talks about, how, you know, we civilized over there in India, in the Ramaya. The Ramaya is actually a story of, you know, that's why it's Ramaya. All right, and it was Prince Maya. Who was Prince Maya? All right, that was all Hindu stories, but it's actually of over here. And so, you know, get that drop right here. It's really deep. Make sure to get it. All right, and after that, I did part 2 of American Indian True Historic Descriptions, where you know, they're reading books describing the Indians, what they look like, and again, more images. You know, a lot more images. So make sure to get this. These are an hour videos, really good. All right, especially for kids and all that. And then what I did, I went live and I did a recap of my From Indigenous American to African American videos. So I put, basically, they kind of went live with it. If you want to experience it, how I went live with everybody with the best parts of those videos. This is it right here, how the American Indian became African American. This is part 1, a 5-hour video. We were live that day. And then the next one, again, part 2 of the same thing, how the American Indian became African American. And this is also 5 hours, almost 6 hours, and this is the best part of that series. So if you don't have the time, maybe you can watch this one and you enjoy it live. And you know, there was things where I stopped and everything. We're live, so there's dead air a little bit in there in time, but you know, it's all the you know, I guess it's the best stuff, right, of that series. All right, but I wouldn't skip it, because I did skip a lot of information. And then a brother contacted me with a great book that he compiled himself from images of walls and these churches in Germany, right, showing how they painted the Americans and the Africans, right? Let me just get to one image right here. All right, so it's called American Indian and African Side by Side, the people of the four continents. This was part one. All right, so that's America right there. See how they depict in America right there. This is from walls in Germany, in these old palaces, churches, and everything. This particular one, let me just go. Different paintings that we went over, they're all depicting the same thing, an Aboriginal. This video was live as well. We did this live. This is a church as well, and it's in Germany. All right, so you saw the name. So again, that was what was inside of it. This is an American right here. See how they draw in the American Indians? These are so-called Negro people, right? All right, and again, look what's in the bottom of them. Can you see the lion? Let me just zoom in a little bit more. All right, so they show two American Aboriginals, right? They have chains. He's breaking the chains on his arm. He's like praying or something, but then he has a lion. You see lions in America, the animal video, and lions are from here, American lion. All right, mammals originated in America. It all correlates, it all goes together, all right? So, you know, that's just an example. Make sure to get that. This is an awesome build. These videos I did here with the American Indian African side by side, the people of the four continents. Again, that was part one. Then we had part two. Yeah, it was a good build. Everybody enjoyed it. All right, that's part two right here. Then I did I went live actually, and we broke down. This was a really good video. I did it live, but you know, it says the origin of the name California. Califia, the Aboriginal queen of the island of California. It's 4 hours and 20 minutes. We did it live. We went over so much book, so much information, so much history regarding California, Queen Khalifa, the stories behind the mythology, where they get the origin of these stories, the books, if you're interested. All right, these are from really old books. We even went back to medieval times, 1100s, 1200s, Roman laws and stuff, talking about Queen Khalifa. All right, we're talking about a lot of things, warrior women. All right, this is a very good, informative video. All right, how California was depicted as an island in old maps. All right, very informative video. All right, if you enjoy this kind of history, you will love this. It was a great build that we did it live, so if you want to experience that, you can go ahead. All right. And then we did part three, American Indian and African side by side. Part three, the same thing. People of the four continents. Just want to show you the cover. Just want to show you the cover, all of them. So this was part two. The American Indian right here, and an African. That was painted on the wall, the same wall. All right. This is another one right here. America right here, Africa right here, right? Both Negroes, right? All right. So after these videos, I did a little series. They were quick videos. I found this book called Let Me Be a Free Man, Indian Resistance. Let's see, Indian Resistance. All right. And then we quote a lot of chiefs and what they went through in their resistance. It's a very good video. They're short. This one's 20 minutes. This is part one. All right. And this is Let Me Be a Free Man. The Powhatan War, Indians grew tobacco, not Africans. The Indians grew tobacco, all right? The Powhatan had large tobacco fields, all right? And then Let Me Be a Free Man, King Philip, met the Comet War, Pequot War, Indians sent to the Caribbean. All right, we already got that in our slavery video, but this book was also letting us know. Then we got a part four, it says Let Me Be a Free Man, Tecumseh, his message and prophecy, remember the ancestors, all right? Such a really good, you know, oh man, this was, I felt this when I was reading it. Tecumseh, his words, all right? Make sure to get that. And then we got this really quick video. I found the Statute Act 1705 from the Virginia Statute Acts of that time, letting us know that a mulatto is a child of an Indian, right? Period. And a child of a Negro, not a mixture. They're referring to both of those. That's what a mulatto was. All right, and that was in 1705 Statute Act. We got the book inside there. All right, we got it from the Library of Congress. And then after that, you know, I did a little series. This was not really to start any, you know, bad war or anything. It's just like, if you don't know by now, if you've seen all my videos, I try to keep it historical here. So when I see people pushing a certain narrative or just forcing a certain ideology on everybody with ever no show, no sources or anything. So I did my own research. I even already had this research because I followed a lot of these brothers way before I had a YouTube channel. All right, we were all there. All right, and so I did this series called No More Misunderstanding. This one says Ham, Canaan, Moabite, Drew, Ali, Joshua. What is the relevance? All right, I'm gonna let you guys go watch that. All right, this is part 2, No More Misunderstanding, and then it says the title: Phoenicians, Canaan, Atlantis, Joshua, Moors. All right, go take a look at that. This is part 3, and again, No More Misunderstanding. It says Goliath, David, Berbers, Almoravid, Moabite, Egypt, Moors. All right, go get that. And then we got part 4. All right, we got No More Misunderstanding, Drew Ali, Canaanite, Masonry, Jews, Spanish, Moors. What's all that about? Kurimeo. All right. Hey, man, I'm just reading, man. Took it on me. I'm just a messenger, right? Part 5 says No More Misunderstanding, Garvey, the UNIA, the United Negro, right? Moabite, Circle 7, Quran, the NOI, the Nation of Islam, right? The Great Seal, Mason. Oh man, what is this about? All right, go check it out. I'm not gonna show any of it. No More Hijack, part 6. We did this one live. All right, this one was live. Look, almost 5 hours long. All right, and I decided to end it there. But this one's Jamal Afghani, Suleiman, Moabite, Mesha Steel. What is that about? Who are those people? Who's Jamal? Get the drop. Who's Jamal? All right, my fault. And then after that, this is recent. It's only a month ago. I did this video, A Real American Indian Story. This was a really good video. I think I enjoyed making it. I had these collected already. I had all these videos. I didn't know what to do with them, so it was part of my series that I was doing from Indigenous American to African American. But we're just showing different so-called black tribes of America and their powwows, how they get down. All right, let me just get to one example here. If you haven't seen this, and then we also talk about the Holocaust, the real Holocaust. All right, the real Holocaust. All right, that happened here, and how does it involved over there in the other world in World War II? What does it relate to over here? All right. All right, so make sure to catch that. And then, of course, you guys already know these are all recent, the North American tribes, chiefs, and warriors and their stories, the book where we're going over recently. This was part 1. We focused on the Sioux and also some other stuff that we went over in there, some good information. Part 2, it says warriors. That we talk about the Seminole there, racial integrity after Walter Plecker, so get that drop. Part 3, we talk about the Aboriginal Canadians, right, and North Americans, the Blackfoot, and also who invented hockey, who really invented hockey, those Aboriginals. All right, then this one we talked about the North American tribes, the Choctaw, Crow, Cheyenne, the Assiniboine, and also the Indian Removal. Alright, Indian Removal Act. And then my very last video, which was about 6 days ago, says here. Alright, and this was a great build. We went into the mythology of the American tribes, alright, and history, like stories that folklore that we get, and there's moral lessons behind them, and what we can learn from them. My guest speaker, Anu Breed, he has his own channel. Make sure to subscribe. A New Breed, just like this, ANUBREED, of the Catawba Sioux, Saponi, the Catawba Saponi tribe. All right, it was a great build. Him and Kiowa were on the panel with me, and we did a good build, and everybody enjoyed it. We went over some folklore. We're gonna do more of those definitely, 'cause I love that. All right, and that's you're all cut up. So now if you haven't gone and seen any of these videos or any of the information, make sure to make the time, get to know me, my journey. If you like to join this journey with me, I got so much more coming. All right, I want you to know I have over 900 PDFs that I've collected over the last 3 to 4 years. All right, and a lot of them are primary sources from the archives. I have original Spanish books, documents. I'm ready to translate it. That all takes time and work. And I'm going to get back into all these series, especially the Untold Ancient American Truth. It's just deep, how deep it is. The true old world, all right. The Hebrew thing, definitely gonna get back into it because you gotta understand it's all part of one truth. All right, we know Moabites are real. We know Israelites are real. All right, this ain't no Bible stories. All right, whatever you think about it, whatever you want to say about it. All right, if you know me, if you've been following along all these videos, you see I try to keep it historically. I try to keep it all something that we can research and verify. All right, and if I do make up any opinions or conjecture, I'll let you know at that moment. This is my opinion. All right, but other than that, I'm just reading books, correlating different things that add up to one story. All right, and if you by now you don't see it, I don't know what else, but if you're still talking about that some of us are African, you're not overstanding. All right, and I know some of us are African, but you're saying it in a way like some of us, a large population of us are African, but it's not so. All right. All right, so one more thing, just make sure to check out my Instagram. It's Kurimeo. Just find me as Kurimeo Khan. Kurimeo. Just put Kurimeo. It'll pop up. All right. I got over 1,200 images. All right, of Aboriginals. All right, from different tribes all over the Americas, North America a lot. All right. Go ahead and take a look at it. I got so much more to upload. I just haven't got to it. But you're gonna see I got a lot of images. At what point are we gonna, keep denying this? All right. How long are we gonna keep denying this? All right. All right. I got a lot of images all day. All right, and these are not mixed with African slaves or anything like that. All right. So make sure to go ahead and follow me there. If you have an Instagram account, send me a message. I have direct message there if you'd like to speak to me or anything. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this recap that I did. My videos. I think it was necessary to just people understand what I have done already and what we've talked about, so we can get focused on what we need to continue with, and not keep talking about the same things over and over and getting stuck on one topic or one subject, because we keep learning, right? I'm so excited to just keep learning right now and make more videos. And trust me, I haven't stopped the pure deep research that you guys like. I'm doing it. I had to get a new computer and I lost all my work. I had already videos that I had produced and I was ready to upload, and they're still stuck in the old computer. I have to go bring it somewhere and take it out the hard drive and see where I can recover all this stuff. All right, but I have to start from scratch again. I have to start from scratch, but I'm not complaining at all. I love what you guys did. I'm very thankful for the computer. My family appreciates it. I appreciate it deeply. It's been a blessing. You guys are a blessing, and you guys show that there is good people out there. There's a lot of love out there for me, and I love you all. You guys, thanks for subscribing, following me, all the support every time. Please forgive my trespasses. I'm human. Forgive me if I ever said anything bad or I act human. Forgive me. All right. I'm not perfect. Nobody is. I'm a student. I'm learning. We're all growing. I still respect elders and everything. And I just I'm at the point where, if I've put in a lot of work, not because, I want a certain benefit financially, but because I want people to have these tools, this info as tools, like that you can use it. You can go back to references, show it to people, go show it to professors, question them with all this stuff. And learn and let's build, and bring some value to me, teach me something about you and your tribe personally. There's a lot of history I'm leaving out. I know that. So we can all learn and grow. All right. So it's bigger than just for subscribers to me. I didn't predict I was going to be a successful YouTube channel. I mean, how would I know that? I don't know if people really cared about this stuff. I just knew that it was important from what I was learning from others. All right, so I came out, and it's been a blessing. Everybody I've met, and I hope that it's helped the whole plane, humanity, a whole. I hope that these videos go far. This information, it doesn't get forgotten, doesn't get buried. All right, I hope you don't. I hope you are living more indigenous. I hope you know who you are. All right, and I'm gonna keep coming with more info. All right, so thank you for being here. All right, blessings. All right. Shalom. All right. Peace out.